Gamers, welcome to Ocarina Improv, the new GDQ hotfix show special that dives in depth into Zelda Ocarina of Time Randomizer, or ZOOTR for short. I'm your host, Nuclear Reaction, and tonight, myself and 9 Whole Grains will be breaking down an Ocarina of Time Randomizer seed as Engel plays through. But first, a few announcements. Unapologetically Black and Fast submissions are now open. Submissions will be open until January 23rd, 2022. Scheduled to be released on February 1st. Type command UBAF for the link to the submission form. Additionally, Frost Fatales is February 27th to March 5th. Use command FF in chat or go to gamesdonequick.com/framefatales for more information. So before we start this Ocarina of Time Randomizer or ZOOTR seed, we're going to go ahead and show y'all a little intro video. This is going to break down for you what the heck an Ocarina of Time Randomizer really is at the core. Did you ever want to know what exactly Ocarina of Time Randomizer is? In this video, we will discuss what ZOOTR is and what the differences are between it and the base game. The information we'll be giving pertains to the Season 5 standard rules and settings. However, there are many ways to customize your ZOOTR experience. The basis of Randomizer is to take all the unique items in chess, mini-games, and freestanding item locations and shuffle them amongst each other. This means that the Kokiri sword chest may end up having your bow instead, or perhaps the heart piece in the spinning Goron pot may end up having the Megaton hammer. Songs are also shuffled amongst themselves. So you could get Saria's song from Sheik in the Desert Colossus. Additionally, the dungeon rewards, your 3 spiritual stones and the 6 medallions, are randomized between the dungeon bosses. So your fire medallion might be guarded by King Dodongo, rather than its normal location in the fire temple with Volvagia. ZOOTR allows players to start with the Door of Time open. That means you can freely shift between child and adult Link at any point. Expect to change ages multiple times throughout your journey. Aside from a few other small changes, this is the same Hyrule you've experienced in the classic Ocarina of Time. Randomizer takes all the best aspects of the original version and strengthens them to their fullest potential. In a way, you can look at every randomizer as its own complete puzzle. This puzzle will always be completable. Every playthrough, you'll be challenged to complete the game in a different way, with different logic dictating how you'll move through the game's iconic locales. You'll be amazed at just how many different uses there are for Link's equipment. And more than anything, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for this classic masterpiece. Did you ever want to know what exactly hopefully that video Ocarina of Time helped kind of explain and show you visually what the basics of Ocarina of Time Randomizer is. We'll often be referring to this as ZOOTR, as you may have heard in the video. So going forward, that we mean the same thing when we say ZOOTR and Ocarina of Time Randomizer. To help me out though tonight, I've got 9 Whole Grains and Engel here. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to 9 Whole Grains so he can introduce himself before we get started here.
Hello, everybody. I hope that your evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it may be, is going great. And thank you so much for joining us for this inaugural episode of Ocarina Improv. As Nuke so happily explained, there's a lot to this, and I'm just so happy that we're finally getting to put this through. A lot of work has gone into this, and I know that the concept of switching around everything in Ocarina of Time might seem a little bit imposing, but thankfully, we've got a great runner here tonight that's going to help explain all of it. And Engel, if you can hear me, are you ready for tonight's scene?
Yes, I am. Howdy, everyone. Looking forward to hopefully having a nice little run through of, what Ocarina of Time Randomizer is all about, and have a nice little playthrough. But before we start, do you guys want to maybe talk about, what all this is on just this intro screen alone, right?
Yeah, there's honestly a lot of information on this screen before we even get started. At the top, you're going to see a bunch of random items, seemingly random. Those are going to be your seed hash. These are just used to kind of compare to other, like let's say you're in a race or you're doing a co-op randomizer. These are going to help you compare with who else you might be playing with, that you're using the same exact seed going forward. We also get to start with a free dungeon reward. In this case, it's the Zora Sapphire. That's random every time as well. That just accounts for the free dungeon reward you get from Sheik once you go adult initially in the vanilla game. So you're gonna always start with a free one there.
Yeah, and the song as well, we get one of those for free. In the vanilla game, you all may remember that very stress-inducing guard stealth sequence scene that they just kind of shoo in at the front of the game. Well, decided we didn't really want to have to do that every time we play this, so we just go ahead and give you that song for free. In the base game, it is, of course, Zelda's Lullaby, but it gets randomized at the start of every one of these seeds. We'll be starting here with the Prelude of Light, which some of you may remember, a very helpful song that warps you straight to the Temple of Time, which, as you all will come to see, is a very, very important thing for this particular format.
I also want to note, if you look at the tunic color there too, you can see that that tunic is white. Now, I don't recall Link ever wearing a white tunic in the vanilla version of Ocarina of Time Randomizer. The vanilla version of Ocarina of Time. So that's going to be one of the many things cosmetically you're going to see different. So I just want to explain that before we get in, that things like tunic color is going to be different. You're going to notice that the music is going to be different than the normal locations. Things like your heart colors, your C button colors, those are all going to be different too. So those are just cosmetic changes. You don't have to play with those if you don't want to, but I think it does add to the fun of this.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Nothing more exciting than fighting Ganon to the tune of the Kokiri Forest soundtrack. It just really adds to the momentum of this huge apocalyptic fight. But Nuke, should we toss this to Engel to get this started?
Yeah, let's jump into this. Engel, whenever you're ready to count us down.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's get started on this very not pre-recorded run. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
All right, so the first thing that you're going to notice here, Engel is going to be starting in Kokiri Forest. This is a child start here. Some versions of Ocarina of Time Randomizer do randomize where you start. For tonight, we're keeping it very simple for you all. Just going to be starting here in Kokiri Forest as Child Link.
Also, something very alarming we see right now, a large chest inside Mito's house. We are playing with the setting chest contents. Oh, hold on, it looks like our video froze. If anyone was wondering if this was actually pre-recorded, I promise it's not, or else we would not be frozen right now. We would have edited that out. So welcome to a very live hotfix show here. Hopefully we should, all right. Looks like we are good, yay. Sorry about that, chat. Thanks y'all for being very patient here. Now you can see, here in Mito's house, there is a giant chest amongst these 4 normally small chests. That just indicates that there is a major item in there, that we found the slingshot in that particular one. That's a setting called chest contents, or chest size matches contents. So throughout the run, we're going to be starting off by opening small chests, trying to get some health perhaps, maybe some bomb chews, because those technically don't count as progressive items. But they do help. So we're going to be, Engel's going to be opening up some small chests to start here.
Opening small chests, and Engel has so kindly stopped there on a nice little Sheikah stone. Some of you may remember in the base game you need the Mask of Truth to talk to those and get some interesting lore. In Ocarina of Time Randomizer, however, we need hints, right? We can't figure this out by ourselves, so all of the hint stones in Ocarina of Time Randomizer give you very, very helpful hints that kind of sort out the big mishmash of moved items and songs. So Engel got one that said, Jabu Jabu's belly is foolish. And to break that down a little further, if a location is foolish or is told to be foolish by one of those Sheikah stones, it means Engel's not going to need to open any chests in that area. It contains nothing that is necessary to help him get through the seed. And when we say get through the seed, we mean beat dungeons, we mean get dungeon rewards, things of that nature. So if we do have to go to Jabu Jabu's belly at any point in this seed, Engel's probably not going to be opening too many chests in it, which is always a nice feeling.
I think a common misconception too with those foolish hints is that you may be required to complete that foolish dungeon. So we might have to see Engel still have to complete Jabu. We just know that there is going to be nothing valuable in the chests there.
Notice right there we got the Kokiri sword, which is very fitting. We didn't have to go very far from where we'd usually find it. So Engel, talk just a little bit here about what that Kokiri sword opens up for you in the context of the randomizer.
Yeah, so, just like in the classic game, we have Mido kind of standing in our way from the Deku Tree saying, hey, where's your Kokiri sword? Where's your shield? You gotta have those to get over here. Well, we just found the sword, so now we're gonna be able to go into the Deku Tree, explore that dungeon, and hopefully find even more items to help us progress here.
And this might be a good moment, Nukes, to just kind of break down. We've talked about foolish dungeons, dungeons that need progression. Go ahead and tell the people, what exactly are we doing here? What is the point of a ZOOTR seed?
So our point is to spawn the bridge to Ganon's castle. Typically, in these settings, that's going to be to get 6 medallions. You can play with other settings. That's the other thing that's really great about ZOOTR is it's super customizable. So tonight we are opting to play with Engel is going to have to get 6 medallions. We don't currently know which dungeons have those medallions since dungeon rewards are shuffled. But it looks like Engel is going to opt to go to the Deku Tree. A lot of early checks here. Not a bad play. Even if it might not be a stone or it might not be a medallion since we don't know yet.
Right, we don't know yet. And one thing that should be said about the start of these randomizers as well is you start with very limited equipment, right? You may have noticed at the start, Engel had a shield, had some Deku nuts, could go around and get some rupees, but really didn't have much to work with at the start. All of the dungeons that Engel will be going through and needs to complete will require that he finds some items, right? It just depends on which dungeons he has to do. So finding an item really early on is very nice to help you go into a dungeon and do some more of these checks. And if you are a little confused on the terminology of check, we just kind of abbreviate it from checking an area, right? So every single item has been randomized in Ocarina of Time Randomizer, as we kind of noted. So we're checking to see what these new chests hold, what these new non-playable characters hold, things along those lines. So if we say checks, that's what we're referring to.
It's another barren area, foolish area, hint, Zora's River. So we've got 2 areas early on that we know we do not have to worry about checking any of the checks there, which is very nice. It's kind of disappointing when you check an area and then find out it was foolish. But I did see.
Never done that
before. See a
before.
question in chat about if this is a competitive category. There are actually a lot of Ocarina of Time Randomizer tournaments. We're currently on the season 5 and a main tournament, but there's a lot of side ones, including co-op and multi-world. We have tournaments that are designed more for newer players to the game as well. So there's definitely a big growing competitive scene here.
And my favorite category, Pictionary ZOOTR, which is where somebody draws where all the items are and the runner has to guess where it's at.
Oh, bombs. Now, talk about big items in this game. I'd say bombs.
Right.
Bombs is kind of your big one that you're hoping to find kind of early on. Definitely unlocks a lot of different checks. There's a lot of checks that you're going to need some type of explosive to access, or a hammer can sometimes suffice, but bombs do hard lock not only a lot of checks, but a lot of areas such as Dodongo's Cavern.
Yeah, and beyond locking that too, it's also I would say it's just one of the most versatile items in the game, period. Beyond just the checks, there are situations where if you don't have a Kokiri sword early like Engel does, you might run out of Deku sticks and other avenues to damage enemies. So I've definitely used bombs a time or two to fight my way through a dungeon. But Engel, as you're kind of going through Deku Tree here, talk just a little bit about how Deku Tree plays in Randomizer compared to how it plays in the traditional base Ocarina of Time. Because some dungeons play radically different. Some dungeons are actually pretty similar to their base counterparts.
Yeah, I think this one is pretty similar to the base counterpart. You kind of got to go up the tree first. There's a few checks to grab up there with those treasure chests, and then make your way so you can jump down here to the basement. And well, this is the part where it gets interesting, right?
Yeah, if you would, go ahead and show both common ways of skipping a little portion in this area, because some of you may remember that in traditional Ocarina of Time, the base game, you are expected to go around the side of the dungeon. You're expected to use that slingshot to shoot an eye switch, run around the backside, crawl through, and then light a torch. We've got some other ways of doing it. A little bit quicker the way that we do it here. So Engel, just kind of talk us through both of the avenues and also what you're going to be doing with this.
Yeah, so starting off, as you know, there's a web over there we got to burn on fire. So what we're going to do here is pull out our Deku stick and then put it away so that when it goes away, it's going through that torch still. And what that's going to do is kind of trick the game into thinking that the torch I'm holding is still lit, even though it's kind of, in my pocket. Right? But when we pull it back out, it's going to be able to still burn that web. And now there's a few ways to kind of skip our way up to this ledge here, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop a bomb here, step back a bit, and kind of hold Z and R and roll forward towards it. Right, so I'm going to do this, and then it's going to explode on our shield. And now that stores what we call a ground jump. And basically, when Link tries to do a backflip here, he's going to do this other kind of weird little jump and get this extra height. And suddenly I'm up here. Oh. And, like I said, there's the flame. We're through.
A weird little jump, as it's actually just a fairly basic vertical leap from where he's standing, but you're going to see Engel make use of that a lot over the course of this run. Bomb jumping is, I would say, one of the first tricks that you learn in this game, and you all will be amazed at how high adult Link can reach. That dude has like volleyball player arms. He is lanky.
It's also good to note that there are many, many methods to learn how to ground jump. That's not the only setup for it. So if you're looking to get into Ocarina of Time Randomizer, I always suggest that's one of the first tricks you learn. And just find a method that works well for you. There's lots of videos out there that will show you different methods for that trick. Since that's just one of the many that Engel just showed off for us.
Yeah, and Engel actually pulled out a couple little tricks there in that fight too. If you blinked and missed it, that's totally fine. Goma, not quite as terrifying as she was when we were kids playing through this game for the first time. But Engel, after you grab that wonderful...
Wonderful.
Welcome to Ice Traps.
Wow, okay, so this is a particularly sadistic setting that turns on ice traps and always disguises them as an item that you're really excited to get. Fortunately, we do get one of the medallions at the end of it, but I guess, Nukes, go ahead and just briefly talk about that Goma fight there, since it breezed by so quickly. Some of these boss fights are a little time sensitive, so we went past it quick.
Maybe Engel could stop and show us breaking a stick as well, because that's kind of a big major thing. That's pretty easy to do here as well, if you want to break that down. Well, we're frozen, so when we unfreeze, we can show you what that broken stick. But you might have noticed back in that Goma fight that Engel went ahead and broke his stick beforehand. That let Engel use many hits with a stick instead of wasting them earlier on.
It's also worth noting too that in addition to breaking the stick actually has the same damage counter as the Master Sword. So I don't know how they got sticks to be as strong as the Blade of Evil's main, but you know, when Engel uses a jump slash too, that also stores the damage value for that jump slash. And in Ocarina of Time, whenever you crouch stab, which is what Engel was doing to attack Goma there, it was taking every single one of those as a Deku Stick jump slash, which is the most powerful option that Child Link has available. And that's why it only took 3 stabs in order to take down Goma. So you're gonna see a lot of crouch stabbing over the course of this as well. So just get used to that being the main form of combat because it's quick, it's efficient, and looks cool in my opinion.
I also want to real quick shout out Tudos in chat. I see Tudos chatting. Tudos also helped put the show together, and I see him answering a lot of questions in chat, which appreciate. Please feel free to ask questions. The whole point of the show is to help everyone have a better understanding of Ocarina of Time Randomizer. So Nine and I will be trying to answer your questions as much as possible, but anyone in chat is, of course, welcome to help if you know the answer.
Absolutely, and there's a lot to Ocarina of Time Randomizer. We are well aware that watching one show, as hard as we will try, you know, it always takes a little bit to digest all of this. So don't feel bad if we throw some terms at you that you're not quite familiar with, because I'll be honest, it took me a really long time to figure any of this out. So that's part of the fun of it, and it does breathe life into Ocarina of Time in a way that I think you all will be very impressed at as we start to move through this. So Engel has done some of these checks that require the bombs, as you mentioned earlier, Nukes, and now in Sacred Forest Meadow, chasing what I would assume is a song. Talk a little bit about why songs are so powerful and, well, why we need them, frankly.
So songs are super, super valuable. A lot of songs will block either checks or areas. Additionally, our warp songs can help us either access new areas or just move around the seed faster, which when you're playing this competitively in a race, obviously you want to move around as fast as you can. So there's a lot of value in most of the songs for one reason or another, whether it's unlocking additional checks, progressing through a dungeon, or even accessing a dungeon. We'll see what song we get up here, and we can explain what maybe some of the values are of the particular song we get right now. We did start off with Prelude, which is a useful warp song that will get us to the Temple of Time, which we'll be doing quite a bit here. Nine, do you want to go ahead and explain Zelda's Lullaby?
Yeah, a song that really doesn't get us anything here. It's a song that Engel, I know, is very unhappy to know. So Zelda's Lullaby is one of the most important songs that you can get inside of Randomizer, right? There's so many, not only checks, but dungeons that you cannot beat if you do not have Zelda's Lullaby. Just a couple examples. You all probably remember the infamous...
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties here with Engel's stream. But just hold tight, everyone. We're going to work through it so that we can unfreeze the frozen here.
I'm not
no
sure.
No more foolish.
Not seeing any dropped frames.
This is truly a mistake that we've made in terms of that ice trap seemingly froze the entirety of it. We've randomized the frame rate.
All right, looks like we are good to keep going here.
Excellent. I'll just briefly kind of finish my thought on Zelda's Lullaby. So you all probably remember the infamous Water Temple. You change the water levels in there with Zelda's Lullaby. In the Shadow Temple, that famous boat ride that you have to take to get to the back side, that takes Zelda's Lullaby as well. Every fairy fountain requires Zelda's Lullaby and a whole host of other things, but I think it'd be very important to talk about some of the hints that we just got. So Engel, talk very briefly about... We talked about foolish hints, and we kind of just saw a couple of counterparts there, the path of hints. So talk a little bit about what those said and what those mean for you.
Yeah, so we got two interesting path hints. One of which kind of less useful to us now. It said Kakiri Forest path for Goma, which, well, we already kind of got rid of Goma, didn't we, here? So, but what that kind of showed us was that slingshot we got in Mido's house was used kind of to get that Kakiri sword, and then we were able to, go into the Deku Tree. So we've kind of cleared up that path, but we also got the Bongo path, right?
Yeah, Bongo, of course, being the guardian of the Shadow Temple. So essentially, anytime that we have a path that points to a specific boss, that one means by default that that's going to be a boss that we'll have to beat. It is always a boss of a medallion dungeon in the current settings. And beyond that, it will point to an item that will eventually allow us to beat that. Now, it doesn't always necessarily mean that it is the item to get into the dungeon. It can sometimes be along a path. It can get a little convoluted, so we'll probably stop this short and put a pin in it and come back later. But again, to kind of reiterate, 40 Gossip Stones over the course of this entire seed. We won't be checking all of them most likely, but they are very, very powerful, and expect to see Engel grab as many as he can as he goes along his journey.
So I do want to ask Engel right now to explain what your routing is right now. I see we're trying to get kind of just clear as many checks as possible, it looks like.
Yeah, so we got the bomb bag, right, and lullaby, so we can do a few checks right now in Child Goron City. Maybe try and find some more items, help us on our way here before we kind of work our way to the market and maybe become an adult. Go through some more dungeons.
And I'll add to that as well, something that, once you play Randomizer enough times, it kind of becomes old hat and you start to forget. But having the bomb bag this early means that Engel's not really going to have to go into Hyrule Field for a while, right? Of course, in the base game, we wouldn't have bomb bags this early. You would get it from the Dongo's Cavern, and you wouldn't really get to make use of it in Lost Woods. Lost Woods connects a lot of areas in this game, so we'll probably spend a lot of time here. And you can see that Engel used that to get straight into Goron City, which normally would be a whole walk. He'd have to go up a trail, run through Kakariko Village, and instead, let's just go from Lost Wood. It's quick, it's efficient, and looks like he's going to be rewarded here for heading to the back of this maze with another big chest.
Ooh, big Goron sword. So that doesn't block any progression per se, but it is very nice to have. Definitely going to speed up a lot of fights for Engel going forward.
We'll see it eventually. There it is. Okay. So as Nukes mentioned earlier here, the chest sizes do match the contents here. So Engel knowing that that's a small chest means that he's probably not going to have to come back for that. And you'll see Engel do a few different peeking tricks over the course of this seed to kind of take a look at some chests, save a little time, and not have to walk right up to them. But you might have noticed there in the background that the Door of Time is open. And that is one of the calling cards of Ocarina of Time Randomizer. You can become an adult anytime by going up to the Master Sword and pulling it, and vice versa. Anytime you want to go back to child again, you can run right up to that, put the sword back in, and then boom, you're a child again. And I think that that really is one of the ways that Ocarina of Time Randomizer enhances what is already a legendary game. Because, again, for those of you who maybe are familiar with base Ocarina of Time, you really only make use of the age change a couple of times. When you go to Bottom of the Well, you change back. Spirit Temple, of course, has you go in both. But in a lot of seeds, you'll have to change back and forth many, many times. And it just, again, really breathes new life into a mechanic that didn't get as much love in the original release.
So definitely trying to, as we mentioned a little bit here, definitely trying to get as many checks as possible. We are still missing quite a few items, including 3 3 key items that you definitely need every single time you play this game so that you can defeat Ganon. That's going to be your bow, your light arrows, and your magic to use the light arrows. Those are hard required to beat Ganon at the end of the seed. So we're definitely going to need to find those. However, the nice thing with light arrows is if you do, let's say you get your 6 medallions or whatever your bridge requirements are, and you're able to access Ganondorf, he will actually, in Randomizer, tell you which area your light arrows are located. Now, he won't say which exact chest per se, but he'll tell you, oh, they're hidden in Lon Lon Ranch. So that is a nice benefit to, you know, getting that bridge and being able to go and talk to Ganondorf if you don't quite have your light arrows yet.
And speaking of Lon Lon Ranch, here we go. You'll notice that Angle's going to be backwalking a lot. The backwalk is the fastest way of travel that doesn't involve using Epona, so just expect that a lot both in and out of dungeons. But here in Lon Lon Ranch, there's a couple checks that you can do, and all of these checks are child only, it should be noted. Gonna play with the chickens here. Angle's gonna try to find 3 of these. This is serious time, so Angle's gonna be trying his best to find this in 30 seconds. I don't know if he's gonna manage it.
A fun thing that I didn't know till recently is that there's actually a visual difference with the Cuckoos that you have to catch in that game. They ever so slightly deep, they peck deeper into the ground. It's a weird visual that you might not notice right away, but there is a little bit of a tell. I also did see a couple questions about why we wasted bomb shoes in the bowling game. Engel knew that he didn't need the items that were the rewards for that minigame, so he just went ahead and got rid of those bomb shoes that are for the minigame so that he could move on as quickly as possible. Because we're trying to go as fast as we can here.
Are some speed elements to it, and Milan there, of course, gives Epona's song in the vanilla game, here giving us the Song of Time. Don't know why she knows that legendary song, but hey, we appreciate it. And this is a location that oftentimes you'll see runners head to pretty early on. As we mentioned before, songs are very, very important. They can save time by being a warp. They might be a song that we have to have in order to access an area. But Engel's gonna do a little trick right here. You can see he rolled into the wall and hit C up in order to peek. And this is something that you can do on a lot of surfaces, provided that you can roll to them. And that allowed him to peek back there and see what we hope are the hover boots. If this is another ice trap this early, then, well, I'm sorry, Engel, but you're gonna see him do that a few more times over the course of this seed. You can see that it takes a little bit of time to crawl back here, and if it was a blue rupee or something we didn't need, he would have probably just warped right out without having to grab it. Instead, we now have the hover boots, which are a very useful item. You need it to beat a dungeon, the Shadow Temple, but it's also nice for a lot of other dungeons as well.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Another easy trick to do as well that helps save time. All you have to do is Z target yourself against the wall. You're gonna roll into the wall and press C up when you're kind of at a certain, when Link's head is like on the bottom of the roll, is the visual for it. Just learning that timing though. Oh.
The skull mask. Oh boy, this is not something I thought we were gonna have to describe tonight. So the skull mask, for those who maybe never did that sequences when they played it the first time, I wouldn't blame you, I never did either. The skull mask is part of a mask trading sequence that Engel will now have to do. It involves him going to a couple of different locations. He has to first get the Keaton mask and then turn that into a guard in Kakariko Village, which will then allow him to go back to the Happy Mask Salesman to get the skull mask. There is an area in the Kokiri Forest called the Deku Theater. He can turn that in at that point to get his Din's Fire, and we know that we will need to get that Din's Fire, because if you remember, we know that we have to beat Bongo Bongo, and in order to access the Shadow Temple, we will need Din's Fire. So Engel put a pin in that, kind of keep that in mind as he goes about doing the rest of this. But a very interesting hint to get this early. And Nukes, I believe he also grabbed another important item while he was there.
Hope I missed what he just grabbed. Sorry, replying to chat members.
No, totally fine. You're actually doing work here, and I'm just chatting away. So
you're explaining
I feel that.
Oh, we are frozen. Again, we're getting a lot of ice traps, it seems, on our game feed. Engel did just pick up the Keaton mask though for that mask sequence, so that we can get that Din's Fire going forward. Based on getting a hint stone that GTG is path to Bongo Bongo, I believe that indicates that we will have to go to Shadow Temple. We will be reading the pedestal here once we go adult. If Nine, if you want to explain the importance of that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's something that you'll see everybody do once they first become adult. So this pedestal will tell us exactly what dungeons we need to beat. The dungeon rewards are randomized, as we kind of mentioned it, as you saw in our nice little intro video. So essentially, we don't know which dungeons we actually need to beat in order to get the 6 medallions. So we already have the one in the Deku Tree. It looks like our Forest Medallion is Fire Temple, Fire Medallion is Water Temple, Water Medallion is Dodongo's Cavern, Shadow Medallion is Forest Temple, and it looks like the Spirit Medallion is our Shadow Temple. So, a lot of words there, but now Engel knows exactly which dungeons he needs to beat. That's not telling us that we won't potentially visit some of the other dungeons, but now he knows which ones he has to beat, and that's very good information to get early on in the seed. We did get Rudo's letter earlier as well. That was the item that Engel got from that fairy fountain in the back. So we've actually got a pretty nice stock of items here early on in the seed. And now we're headed to the place that, that we always end up, which is Kakariko Village here. This is an area with a ton of checks, and I'll just kind of let Engel talk for a moment here as he frantically tries to backwalk to get there before nighttime, and I don't think he did. Well, definitely didn't. Actually, Engel, just go ahead and talk about day and nighttime here and why it's so important in these settings.
Yeah, so we didn't make daytime quite there. So there's a few different checks in Kakariko that depend on the time of day. So we're not going to be able to talk to Anju here and see what item she has just yet, but we can always come back to that. In the meantime, there are plenty of other checks around here, and a couple songs we can get as well. One thing we like to do in the early game here is kind of focus on grabbing our songs, just because they open up so many new possibilities in each seed, either extra warps to help us move around, right, or like Lullaby, something like that, just opens up a whole, new dungeons and stuff.
You saw some crafty jumping there from Engel to get to this half of Kakariko Village. There are certainly other ways to do it involving hook shots or other jumps that you can do, but you'll see a lot of jumps just like the ones that Engel did there that involve kind of setting up specific angles. Again, you'll be amazed at Adult Link's reach here, some of the jumps that he can make that you would think he couldn't. And we also just happened to get a really, really nice song, The Nocturne of Shadow, and that is nice for a number of reasons. First and foremost, we need it to get to Shadow Temple. The little lip back here at the back of Graveyard that accesses Shadow Temple, doesn't matter how tall Adult Link is, he still can't reach that high. He's not going to be able to make that jump. So we need the Nocturne of Shadow to get up there, but it's also going to make coming over here as Child Link much easier. If you remember, or maybe if you're just joining us, we know that we need to complete the Skull Mask trading sequence, which does mean that Child Link will need to come back here eventually, and being able to warp here makes that oh so much easier.
But Nine, why can't I just hookshot jump up to Shadow Temple? That's a glitch.
It is a glitch, and I'm glad that you brought that up because no major glitches are allowed here in Ocarina of Time Randomizer. The I think one of the nice things about this category is most of the tricks that you're going to see Engel perform are mostly different jumps, or maybe something that saves a little bit of time in a dungeon, things along those lines. But there are no major glitches, and that's partially because it gets into something called logic, which we'll kind of break down piece by piece over the course of the seed. But for now, just kind of keep in mind that there are no major glitches allowed, and that is partly for accessibility reasons and partially because it does keep the category fresh.
It kind of almost glitching too much can kind of break, I feel, the point of randomizer here. Because if we just glitched everywhere, well, we could just warp, the end of the game. Doesn't really matter. You can play without logic if you do want to play without glitch or with glitches. That is an option, but competitively, we do not use most glitches.
Yep, so arbitrary code execution, any glitches along those lines, not allowed in this category. There are still some nice jumps that we'll be able to do, but it is a good question. And I do see a lot of people who are maybe familiar with more traditional Ocarina of Time speedrunning, who aren't quite as familiar with some of the community-enforced rule sets. In here to the royal family's tomb. This is another song that's going to be found at the back of here. In vanilla Ocarina of Time, this is where you would get the Sun Song. We'll have to see what it is in here, but this is a song check that is actually locked by Zelda's Lullaby. So obviously we had to play Zelda's Lullaby to get in here. So when we talked earlier about Zelda's Lullaby being a great song to get early, this is one of the reasons, and we'll see what Engel gets.
Saria's song. So Saria's song actually doesn't do a whole lot. It does lock 2 checks, one being Skull Kid, which is in the Lost Woods as a child. You can play the song to Skull Kid, he'll give you an item. You can also do Darunia's Joy, which is another child check that you go and play the song for Darunia. He dances, he's so happy with the song, gives you an item. Additionally, that can move Mito as an adult to get to the forest temple. There are ways around that, or you could use Minuetta Forest to access that area as well as an adult. But that is an option if you don't know Mito Skip, which is a trick we are allowed to use in Ocarina of Time Randomizer.
And thank goodness we are, because he gets in the way and can be very annoying, but thankfully we won't have to worry about that now. So we've kind of completed what we can do here at nighttime in Kakariko Village. So Engel, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling the audience what your plans are here after you finish this final check in Kak.
Yeah, so once we check this last little spot here, we're gonna head on up to Dodongo's Cavern, as one of our early items here is a bomb bag, and that's the main item we need for that dungeon. So it's a medallion. We have to beat it. Let's go see if we can find maybe more stuff in there too. And then the nice thing about beating that dungeon as well is it's going to reset time of day for me to daytime, and I'll be able to step back into Kakariko here for the couple things we missed.
And I've seen a couple people in chat, and it looks like Tudos and a couple other very helpful folks have already said this, but with the standard rules that we are currently using, every check is eventually accessible without the use of major glitches. And as a result of that, every seed is beatable, again, with the settings that we are currently using. There are ways that you can randomize this and change the settings so that you will eventually have a seed that might not be beatable. But again, we're using the community rule set here that's used in races. And of course, every race seed should be completable. Otherwise, it would be a very brutal ending to a race. Skull Kid grants an ice trap, so that's a very nice hint. Engel's not going to have to go back for that. But this may be the first time that some of you have seen this particular dungeon as an adult. But yeah, you can walk right into Dodongo's Cavern as an adult, and you actually already saw adult Link do a little jump on that side that skips, no joke, about half of this dungeon. And you're gonna see that Engel's gonna be able to fly through this dungeon. All he needs to complete it is a bomb bag. So, like Engel said, this is a dungeon that people will enter very, very early on in the seed, and oftentimes people will be in and out of this in about 5 minutes. And it also gives us a medallion, so all the better. You're always at home here in Dodongo's
You might
Cavern.
remember in Vanilla, there's this whole back area where you have to go fight Lizalfos. We skip both of those back areas where you have to fight Lizalfos, which is fantastic because there's no checks back there, no items to be found. So why waste your time back there? We want to finish this fast.
And it's loaded too. This is already our second big check. We've only done 2 checks.
Now's a good opportunity to talk about progressive items, though.
Yes, indeed. So you'll see Engel got a bigger bomb bag here. If you're unfamiliar, in Vanilla Ocarina of Time, there are multiple upgrades for a lot of the weapons. There's bigger bullet bags for your Deku seeds. There's bigger quivers for your arrows. But essentially, every one of those items is treated as its own in this. And what I mean by that is still a bomb bag that he grabbed. So if by some crazy way he arrived in here without a bomb bag, I know he can't right now, but spitball in here, that could be his first bomb bag. And there are quite a few items in this that do have 3 copies of themselves in the seed. So he might be able to access, for instance, 2 bows, right, with his current equipment. And that means that if he finds either of those, it'll give him a bow. When he finds the second one, it'll be a bow upgrade. So we'll kind of call that out as we find them. But now you're seeing the hover boots be very useful. That's a jump that you can actually make without the hover boots, but again, as you said, Nukes, we're trying to go fast, so why not use the hover boots if we got them?
Don't need to go back there and fight those Lizalfos. Also notice that Engel is now to the point where he's kind of just peeking at chests. We mentioned earlier that our progressive major items are going to be in those big chests. So Engel's going to be opting to skip some of these smaller chests now, since we know that they're not going to be progressive items in there. So that was very important.
Well, I mean, this is a very brutal boss fight that Engel's going to be up against here.
You don't want to die to King Dodongo. He's pretty gruesome, from what I've heard.
Hey, he'll mix you up.
Yes.
Gotta be careful. But as some people in chat had pointed out, and this is actually kind of a great thing to make a note of here, Dodongo's Cavern can be accessed in a number of different ways, right? So if you have the Goron bracelet, Engel could have picked up the bomb flower and used that to get in. The Megaton hammer can be used to get in as well. And the reason I bring that up is because this is not the only dungeon where having different equipment allows you to approach it a little bit differently here. Like, for instance, these hover boots are going to make Fire Temple and Water Temple very different than if you didn't have the hover boots. It kind of allows you to sequence break and go out of order for some checks. And again, we'll kind of point these instances out as they come up, but one of the real joys of Ocarina of Time Randomizer is you do get to look at these dungeons differently because you have different equipment. And Engel, how are you feeling about this boss fight right now?
It's pretty tough. We're gonna need some serious time. We got the first hit, luckily. We got to get one more on him though, and you know, anything could happen here. Ooh, hang on. All right.
Ooh, you got
One
it.
more.
You got it.
Wow.
Ooh, the 2 cycle.
He's tough.
So that's another benefit of going in here as adult Link is we have the Master Sword, which, I mean, if you come in here as child Link for some reason, you can also use Deku sticks for the same damage value, but we're just stronger.
Taller, stronger, faster, harder, better, faster, whatever else there.
Ooh.
No, grab it,
Wait
grab
a
it,
minute.
grab it.
I wonder what that could have been. A second pair of hover boots?
Yeah, that's those are actually the Pegasus boots. We
Yeah.
put those in from Link to the Past. You should
have
grab
grabbed
them.
those. Those would have made you go faster. Jokes aside, we know that's an ice trap though because we already have the hover boots. Something we haven't actually touched on is the D-pad quality of life change in this game.
I mean, whatever could you be referring to? I mean, this was in the base game, right?
If only. Yeah, so the really, there's a lot of nice quality of life changes. You'll see one that you might have caught on to is that in Dodongo's Cavern, we got to see block pushing is a lot faster. Additionally, we have these D-pad items. So our Ocarina is always going to be on the D-pad, as well as our hover boots and iron boots, putting those on and off. So no longer do you have to go through the menu that takes forever to open, to click the button, to put on your iron boots, to sink down in the water temple, and then go back in the slow menu, take them off in the menu so that you can move back up, only to do it over and over again. No, just with the click of a button. Additionally, you don't have to worry about, we use the Ocarina quite a bit in Randomizer. Again, songs are super important, especially with warping around the world. So not having to put that on a C button every time is also just super, super nice.
Yeah, it's amazing how much time you save by not having to open up the menu. And that's from like a speed standpoint and also your sanity standpoint. Like it's that nice quality of life, as you said. So now we actually have made pretty good progress here. We have 2 of our medallions by beating the 2 fastest dungeons in the game, which is always nice to have done at this stage. But now we're gonna go ahead and explore a little bit. So you're seeing Engel head up the mountain here, up through Death Mountain Trail. He has a nice little chat with Link the Goron. And now he's gonna be able to access Death Mountain Crater here. And because he has the hover boots, he is gonna be able to cross this little gap that you'll see. Traditionally, you would need the hook shot in vanilla Ocarina of Time in order to hook shot across, but we don't need no stinking hook shot. We've got what we need here, and that's going to give him access to Sheik, who's going to give him another song, and we will see what that is. He's going to do some checks over here on the other side of the mountain as well, and he's going to show a little trick off to all of you as well. We don't need this piece of heart, but normally you'd have to plant a bean to get up here, but again, we don't need no stinking bean. We have hover boots. All the better.
Epona song. That's another good song here where Epona song will be able to use that to get out to the desert. You can either access the desert with Requiem of Spirit. Epona song will get you out there. And also a long shot. So we now have access out there. There's also a couple checks locked behind Epona song. There's the horseback archery checks out in Gerudo Fortress. And also catching a big Poe unlocks a check, which you need to ride Epona. You can use Epona to get. You don't hard need it, but the game does look for you to have Epona for that.
So we just got a pretty interesting hint right there. Lon Lon Ranch is path to Volvagia, and this I think might be a good hint to kind of get your perspective on Engel as you. Well, I guess I'll let you grab this first and hope it's not a fool. Okay, it's the legit mirror shield, so that's good. But talk about what that hint is and kind of take people through the process of what a hint like that means. Because we didn't get the hammer in Lon Lon Ranch. So you'd think, oh, you need the hammer to beat Volvagia. We didn't get the hammer. So just kind of talk us through that process.
Yeah, so like you said, no hammer there. So we have to kind of think back, hey, what did we actually find in the ranch? And, the 2 main things we got were the hover boots and the Song of Time from Malin. So now we're thinking, okay, one of these 2 things we got is kind of going to lead us now towards that hammer. So hover boots, you think maybe Shadow Temple could have it. Song of Time, there's, Water Temple or GTG or The hammer's right here, as I tell you. You know. And see now that so that changes things too, right? So that kind of gives me
we did find the hover boots in Lon Lon.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that now changes your thinking because do you guys want to explain the whole logic scenario we've uncovered here?
So I would say the easy, I don't even say the easiest, but I think the best way to describe it is we found the hovers, as you were kind of mentioning, Nukes, and we kind of just laid out, okay, well, one of the ways to access Fire Temple is by crossing that gap with the hover boots. Well, we found the hover boots in Lon Lon Ranch, which could potentially mean that that's our only way to access Fire Temple right now. Again, there's still some pieces to the puzzle to pull together, but right now that is looking fairly likely, which might mean that Bolero of Fire we can't get to. It might mean we can't get to a hook shot right now. It could be that one of our hook shots is here in Fire Temple. But this is the kind of thinking that you'll have to go through in Randomizer, and these logic strings can get quite complicated. I won't sugarcoat it. They're figuring these things out as you play the game is very difficult, but it's also part of the fun.
Right. So, like you said, I'm kind of rethinking, what the hint could have meant there on the fly here, saying, well, was it just hover boots to get me in here? Was it, we need these hovers to beat Volvagia because of perhaps where the keys in this dungeon are? Or, so with that, we're just going to kind of come in here and explore a bit.
Already, this is kind of a great moment to talk a little bit about some of the alterations made to some of these dungeons. So that that door that Engel just opened, in base Ocarina of Time, that actually has a small key that you need in order to get to it. Not the case here. You saw that Engel just bashed those out of the way with the hammer and was able to come through. This is for a number of reasons, partially to prevent players from getting soft-locked, but also it does change the way that you can route a seed. So let's imagine that you came in here without the Megaton hammer, which you could totally do. You can't get back there, but you might find a small key in the one check that Engel will get to here shortly after he takes care of this Flare Dancer, which means that maybe you do have to come in here without the hammer, get an item, come back after you find the hammer, and finish the dungeon. So, of course, you would not usually have access to the hammer when you come in here early in vanilla Ocarina of Time, but we have it now, so let's get these checks out of the way, and it does make the dungeon a little bit easier.
Another thing that we just saw there that we haven't really touched on is the use of power crouch stabbing. So a real fun thing in Ocarina of Time is that the devs did not place a value on that crouch stab attack. There's no damage value attached to that. So the game just takes whatever the damage value of the last attack you did and uses that for the crouch stab. So that's why you'll see this is actually used a lot in, your speed runs. We're going to use it a lot when fighting enemies because it just lets us get out our strongest attack, which is a jump slash, in real quick succession.
We have found 3 small keys in the 3 checks that we can do. So Engel's going to get to go a little bit further into Fire Temple. And this is one of the neat things about Fire Temple in comparison to some of the other dungeons is if any of the checks that Engel did right there happened to have the boss key, we could have just walked right over and fought Volvagia and left. Now, there might have been an item deeper on, and if so, that would have been quite sad for us to not grab that at the time. But again, the boss key's location is randomized just like everything else. So the Fire Temple and Water Temple in particular are dungeons that you might only have to spend a couple of minutes in based on where you find it. And then dungeons like the Forest Temple and Shadow Temple will pretty much be going everywhere in. But again, it's another cool randomizer specific thing. And it does introduce some elements of, from a racing perspective, a little bit of variance, right? Do I want to go deeper into this dungeon? Do I want to beat it now? And it's just things like that that make this oh so fun and keep us coming back for more.
I also do want to note I've seen a lot of newer folk coming into chat, hello, welcome. This is Ocarina of Time Randomizer. This is a new show, hotfix show called Ocarina Improv. We're gonna have 6 episodes of the show, kind of breaking down the basics and really explaining how Ocarina of Time Randomizer works. If you missed the start of it, we will have the video up on the GDQ YouTube tomorrow night, so please, or if you're gonna miss later the rest of this, please feel free to check out that video. We have been going real in depth of what's going on here. A lot of valuable information if you're interested in maybe getting into Ocarina of Time Randomizer.
It's a lot of fun, I promise. So one thing here, Angle, as you're kind of making the climb, I just want you to kind of touch on a little bit. This is maybe a little bit niche here, but for those of you who don't know, you don't actually need the tunics to beat either the fire temple or the water temple, right? What happens when the timer runs out is it treats your health as reaching 0. So if you happen to have a fairy, you can get revived right back. And there's also ways to get through these rooms very quickly. So that's sometimes a little bit of a risk. But Engel, I believe you're going to be doing another one of the bomb jumps here, but just talk about these giant blocks and the items that are traditionally needed in order to do something about them.
Yeah, so you'll see I stored a ground jump there again, like earlier, so we can jump over this block because I'm supposed to have a strength upgrade to go up further in this dungeon right now. So really, like, the game, even in the randomizer here, does not expect me to be up here without that strength. So we know that there would be a strength upgrade available somewhere else, another dungeon, or maybe in the Hyrule field or somewhere that I could find and get to move that block without being, without having to make that trick. But, I'm taking a little bit of a gamble to do the trick and come up here and see maybe we can get something further while we're, in the area.
And that was one of my big learnings when I first played Ocarina of Time, is that you do actually, the game does expect you to have the Goron bracelet in order to move those. Now, the game doesn't ever tell you that the Goron bracelet is needed to push those big blocks, but it is kind of interesting that the game does expect you to have those, and I guess it's sensible. You don't see those blocks until you're going through the forest temple, so of course in the base game you would have beaten Child in order to do that. So just one of those interesting mechanics that you really don't get to explore until you see it through the eyes of a randomizer.
I also think it's a good reminder right now that if you're looking to start your own Ocarina of Time randomizer, you don't have to necessarily know all these tricks that Engel has been using tonight. The great thing is a lot of these are real simple to learn, but you can learn them at your own pace. You don't have to start off having to know all of these things to complete your own Ocarina of Time randomizer.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the big point there is the logic behind this. Like I said, there will be a strength somewhere that I could have gotten before coming up here just to, push the block like normal and not have to do any tricks here.
Speaking of tricks, here's another pretty fun one. The game expects you to shoot an eye switch on the other side here, and you'll see Engel's just going to come out and the game's going to shut it right back. But there's an eye switch just above Engel on the wall there that you're expected to shoot with the bow. We thought we had a bow, but it turned out to be a giant block of ice instead. So that's another nice little trick that you can do if you can get this far. Just jump back over that little fence. Link's tall enough to reach it. Drop down, get the key. And now Engel's going to be able to go a little bit further. And as we move up here, the compass chest happens to be a big chest. If we say the compass chest, we're mostly referring to the fact that this is where you would find the compass in vanilla Ocarina of Time. It's interesting that they decided to put it so high up, given that there's not a whole lot left, but Engel's gonna do a little trick right here to get past the fire maze here. Normally you'd have to walk all the way around to the other side, but with a well lined up roll, push Link a little forward. We'll get hit with the boulder just for good measure, but Engel's gonna be able to roll through here very nicely. and that's going to allow him to access some of these checks. Normally, you would need a key to get through the door on the other side, but the theme of this dungeon is that Engel is just going to break it to pieces with a couple of simple tricks. And it is important to note, again, to kind of go back to our conversation earlier about glitches and, you know, what it means for a seed, is like Engel said, the game does expect him to have specific items to get this far into the dungeon. And he's operating under the knowledge that those items are places he can get to right now in order to beat this dungeon. So all these tricks that he's doing are just to get him through this dungeon earlier without all of the items he needs. But he doesn't have to know these tricks in order to beat the dungeon. But Engel is a very experienced runner. He runs, I mean, how many seeds do you run a day, Engel? Typically like 3, 4?
Oh, please. We try to keep it to, you know, maybe 1 a day, right?
I've seen you run 4 in a day.
Again, this is using that power crouch stab we talked about earlier in the dungeon. Engel walked into this room and jump slashed with the Master Sword. So now every crouch stab that he does has that stored Master Sword power.
And what's interesting too there is you noticed I actually did the stabs with the hammer. So even a different item gets that same damage value.
Mm-hmm.
And it also retains the same properties, which is another really kind of interesting bit here, because if I had to guess, I would say that you're also going to be making use of that during the final boss fight. Spoiler alert. But it is, again, just a really interesting property that you might not know about if you're unfamiliar with the category. And wow, what a wonderful treasure to find here at the very top of Fire Temple.
How's there ice in Fire Temple? What's...
Yeah, you think it would be just a big puddle of water in there. I also want to note, Engel, that we are coming up to the 1 hour mark here, so maybe at the end of this temple we can take a quick little break. We like to take wellness breaks here on Hotfix shows, so feel free to count us down when you're kind of at the end of here to go fight that boss and then probably take a quick break, everyone.
Yeah, so as you saw, we finally acquired the boss key all the way up here, and can go back down, fight Volvagia, and then I think that would probably be a good break time.
You couldn't have planned this any better in this definitely not pre-recorded broadcast for the wellness break to come up right as Engel is about to finish his 3rd dungeon. But jokes aside, this is, I think, one of the most intriguing boss fights to be played in a randomizer setting. So Volvagia, normally a pretty pesky boss, and I'm actually just going to let Engel narrate the entire fight here because he's got the explanation down pat as to how it plays a little differently when you happen to have Bomb Bag.
Right, so there's actually a few ways we can go about this, whether if you have bombs or bomb chews. Volvagia actually has a few different ways to damage her, one of which is when she goes into one of these holes, that spot will actually take damage. So I'm going to use bombs here to kind of rack up a lot of damage quickly. So she came in here, we're going to drop that bomb. We're going to stun her a little bit to buy some time. And, yeah.
Little rinse and repeat. And it's going to be made easier by having the Bigoron sword. Again, does a lot of extra damage here. This trick can still be done with the Master Sword, but it just makes the timing a little bit more tight. You have to hit a few more bombs. Engel's going to throw another one for good measure. Sprint on over, hit Volvagia, pull out the Bigoron sword, and we are out of here.
Yeah.
Very nice and clean.
And again, like maybe you don't have bombs or bomb chews to hit that spot. So maybe, you want to use your bow while she's flying around. You can shoot at her. You can even swing your sword and hit her when she's coming up and down. A lot of different ways to kind of rack up damage faster in this fight.
And again, that's something you can learn throughout time. I definitely wasn't doing that my first many seeds of Ocarina of Time. Now is a regular thing I do personally, but it's definitely not necessary. All right, Engel, if you want to count us down here to pause the timer, take a quick little break.
Yeah, if we want to 3, 2, and 1.
Hey, all you cool cats and gamers! Welcome back to Ocarina Improv, the new GDQ Hotfix show special that dives in depth into Zelda Ocarina of Time Randomizer. I'm your host, Nuclear Reaction. Tonight, I've got 9 whole grains with me and angles showcasing Ocarina of Time Randomizer and kind of breaking it down to explain how exactly this works. Before we get back into the randomizer, though, a few announcements. Unapologetically Black and Fast submissions are now open. Submissions will be open until January 23rd. Scheduled to be released on February 1st. Type command UBAF for a link to the submission form. Additionally, Awesome Games Done Quick 2022 online is over, but Hotfix is year-round. Go to gamesdonequick.com/hotfix for more info. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, go to twitch.tv/gamesdonequick if you're interested in looking at our live content, starting most nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, back to the randomizer here. We just finished up the Fire Temple. Maybe, Engel, if you want to kind of explain to me what we've got going forward here.
Right, so we just finished up another important dungeon here. As we know, the medallions get randomized between dungeons, so Fire ended up giving us the Forest Medallion, and that's particularly important because that gives us another song check at the Temple of Time, right? Sheik's going to be able to teach us a new song now. And we also picked up the claim check in there, so we're going to probably turn that in real quick before heading over.
And those who might be just now joining us, Ocarina of Time Randomizer is a modded version of Ocarina of Time that kind of ship-shop shuffles all the items that are found in chest or freestanding heart piece, minigame rewards, as well as your dungeon rewards and your songs. So we got to venture throughout Hyrule to find all the items necessary to beat our medallion dungeons, which if you look at the tracker on screen, which is underneath like our title and above the time, that's going to show us what we've already collected and then the dungeons that we still have to complete. So we've already completed Fire Temple for our Forest Medallion, Dodongo's Cavern for our Water Medallion, and the Deku Tree for our Light Medallion. We still need to beat Water Temple for our Fire Medallion, Forest Temple for our Shadow Medallion, and Shadow Temple for our Spirit Medallion. Once we have all 6 of those, we will be able to spawn the bridge to Ganon's Castle, where our end goal is to go and defeat Ganondorf, which we still need light arrows, bow, and magic to do. So, Engel, whenever you want to count us down and we'll get back into the seed.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
I see immediately using the pause time efficiently to change to the claim check here. And welcome back, everybody. I hope that was a wonderful wellness break. Maybe went to the bathroom, stretched a little bit. If you're like me, you refilled your G Fuel to see us through the back half of this seed. But Engel, go ahead and we're kind of at a point in the seed now where we don't have the items we need to beat any of our remaining medallion dungeons. And for people who are newer to Ocarina of Time, they can probably understand, well, okay, if I can beat a medallion dungeon, I should go beat a medallion dungeon. And it makes sense, but there oftentimes comes a part in the seed where you just kind of run out of the items that you need and you got to go searching. So talk a little bit about density, about the strategies of finding these different areas that you haven't been to before, and what your plan is next.
Yeah, so in this case, yeah, we don't have any medallion dungeons we can really do anything in right now. So we're going to start by seeing what song we get here. It might lead us somewhere new. If it's okay, it's Requiem, right? So
Oh, that'll lead you somewhere.
That's an interesting one that we can immediately play and then get another song out in the desert here, right? Maybe check some things.
Those joining us, songs are super valuable in Ocarina of Time Randomizer. Obviously, it does things like getting us to new locations, such as right now we're out in the desert now. It helps us move around Hyrule a lot faster. It also can just block either dungeon progression or checking some checks throughout Hyrule.
Yeah, and in this case, getting access to a place like this is an area of the Desert Colossus that would normally need a few different items to access. So normally you would have to find a way across the bridge in Gerudo Valley, which would need Epona's Song or a long shot. You'd need to get through part of Gerudo's fortress. You would also need either the hover boots or the long shot, and you would need the mask or the lens of truth and magic. All of those things, or you could just use the song. So when we said earlier on in the seed about how some songs can open up new areas or allow you to not need certain items or bypass the need for certain items, that's a great example. And you can see Engel kind of nodding. The last time he found a bow, it ended up being an ice trap, a particularly sadistic trick played. But that was actually another bow over yonder there. And that's a bow that, if Engel wants to get, will need to come back with a bean, plant that bean, and then ride up as a child on the giant lily pad that'll take him about. We're now going to see Engel change back to child for the first time since the start of the seed, and this is, again, for those just joining us, another really unique and nice feature about Ocarina of Time Randomizer. In the current settings, this door of time is always open, so anytime that you can get here to mark it, you can run up to Temple of Time, run back here, slam the sword or pick it up depending on your age, and become the counterpart. And you'll do so multiple times throughout the seed, really taking advantage of both ages and everything they have to offer.
And to go back on that bow, that's definitely an item that Engel's going to be wanting to grab here. As mentioned earlier, you do need a bow in order to beat Ganon, and that's our ultimate goal here. Additionally, one of the required dungeons we need to do is that forest temple for that shadow medallion. And you definitely need a bow to get through that because of the pose in that dungeon, if you remember back in the vanilla version of this game.
And now to have a big throwback here to about an hour ago, frankly. We got a hint early on, and again, for those of you just joining us, the Sheikah stones in this game, the gossip stones, give you hints about the location of certain items, the path you need to go, places you don't need to go. But it told us that the skull mask gives Din's Fire, and Din's Fire is an item that we need in order to enter the Shadow Temple. So right now, what Engel's doing is turning in the Keaton mask to that guard. That's going to allow him to buy the skull mask here from the Happy Mask Salesman. He was in this game as well. He wasn't just in Majora's Mask, maybe a bigger role in Majora's Mask, but he is still present here. And thankfully, this is as far as we'll need to go in this trade quest. We don't need to get the Mask of Truth. We don't need to get the bunny hood or anything like that. We now have that, and we're going to be able to turn this, or well, use this rather, to go ahead and get that Din's Fire. Engel's going to go ahead and save quit here, and that's going to send him all the way back to Link's house. So it's kind of a pseudo warp. And this will be a nice time to get Din's Fire and maybe do some other cleanup.
Engel, just want to ask you, who's doing the run, what's kind of, once you get your Dins here, what's your plan of action?
Right, so we saw the bow on the big arch in front of Spirit Temple. So I figured now would be a good time to kind of tie these two, things together. Grab our Din's Fire, get that bean, be able to plant it, because we are going to need a bow. We're going to really hope that one's not an ice trap as well here. But, it's nice to be able to now kind of route these two things in together when we have some more songs to warp around and move about the world a little bit faster here.
Again, speaking of fast movement, you can notice that Engel's doing a lot of side hopping, back walking. Overall, back walking is usually the fastest way to move around in Ocarina of Time. Other fast ways to move around are good side hopping and rolling. So it just kind of depends on where your destination is, but those are our main ways of optimizing movement in this game.
And again, just speaking of speed as a whole, a while back, Engel got an item that's going to be very useful in this little upcoming routing segment that he talked about, and that's actually the Zora scale, the silver scale. In the original Ocarina of Time, it's gotten in Zora's domain, and you use it for quick access down to Lake Hylia in order to then go ahead and pick up Ruto's letter, which you then take to King Zora, head into Jabu, and do everything that's necessary there. But in Randomizer, it sort of functions as a really nice movement tool. So again, we talked about how Engel was able to get to Goron City very early from Lost Woods because he got a bomb bag. Well, now he's going to be able to get to Zora's River very early as well, kind of using the Lost Woods as almost a hub, if you will, to go between some of these different areas. Now, he does have the bean at the bottom of the river, but while he's up here, he's going to pop into Zora's domain and do a couple checks up here as well. And if he wanted to, he could then opt to use that silver scale to, just like in vanilla Ocarina of Time, head straight from Zora's domain all the way down to Lake Hylia and do some checks there. He may do it, he may not, it just kind of depends. But again, it's just giving new life to an item that you really only use once or twice over the course of a typical Ocarina of Time playthrough. Here you get a scale and suddenly you think, oh, I can go here when I used to not be able to. I can get to Zora's domain now, even though I don't have Zelda's Lullaby. I can move around the map better. And again, it's just one of the ways in which Randomizer really gives this game some new life and highlights its strengths. And wow, that was a fast cutscene. What happened there?
Well, I guess you can teach an old Zora new tricks, huh? Now he's got teleporting powers, but yeah, that's, again, one of those quality of life changes we have here in Ocarina of Time Randomizer is just ways to speed up this game that normally can take a while. Here's another interesting thing we're going to see with this mini-game. Instead of diving down and doing the mini-game right away, Engel's going to go ahead and use flame storage to light. He's going to light up this torch. Ooh,
we missed it.
Okay.
All right.
Plan B.
We're going to play the game.
Diving game here. Engel was a little scared that he'd bonk Link into the rocks, so he took the scenic route. But that's okay.
So for those who may have missed the early explanation of flame storage, and Engel will probably do it again just to give everybody the satisfaction of seeing it here. It's a way to do this little sequence a little bit quicker. You can do the torch run and the diving game in one go around, which does save some time. Of course, you do not need to know flame storage in order to do this. It's just there to save time. So we'll let Engel go ahead and give that explanation once he gets back to it.
Ooh.
Well, maybe not an item that we wanted to get.
Well, especially we do know that Jabu Jabu is barren, so that was a hint we saw earlier, which that essentially means that there is nothing of value in Jabu Jabu. It also isn't a medallion dungeon, so we don't even need to beat it for that reason. So not really a spicy item there.
Not a spicy item at all. And while Engel's finishing this torch run, I'll let you explain flame storage here shortly, Engel, but I just wanted to reiterate for any guests that may be coming in order to spawn the bridge to Ganon's Tower, we do need to get the 6 medallions. The 3 spiritual stones unlock the Ocarina of Time cutscene, which gives us a song. And there are some seeds in which that is a song that you need to get in order to finish the game. We know from an earlier hint that that is not the case this time. So pretty nice, bit of information to get there. As Nuke said, we won't need to go through and get that at all. But I just wanted to kind of talk to that. Engel has left the torch, but if you wanted to explain it, still certainly totally fine to do so.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about while we do a little fishing here, right? So the gist of it was what I was trying to do. And what we kind of showed earlier in the Deku tree was you pull out your Deku stick, light it on the torch, and then you want to put it away such that the stick is still touching the flame when it goes away. That kind of stores the the lit value to the stick, and then you can pull it out again later, and then just light another torch with it. But we were off just a little bit with our placement there, so didn't quite work out this time. But as we said again, like, you don't truly need any of these tricks to be able to come in and enjoy randomizers. You can just go about kind of the normal way of the classic game and just light the torches as you go running down.
And that I would say that the approach that you should take if this has piqued your interest and it's something that you're considering trying out is definitely learn the dungeons, learn where the chests are, learn the checks, and then way after you've done that, start learning some of these tricks. Because again, as Engel said, none of them are required. They're all there to save time, and time saving is not really the obstacle. And frankly, I would argue probably shouldn't be your goal the first time you try Ocarina of Time Randomizer, right? Yes, there's races, and everyone loves to see a good race here, but this is a fun way just to experience this game.
Yeah, I definitely hard agree with all of that. The first time I did one of these, it took me about 13 hours, so definitely not speedy. Now I can,
That's about where mine was.
But I do recommend, if you are starting off, there are a lot of great resources out there. I have been linking in chat one resource. But other things to look into, I highly suggest starting off with a map tracker. That's going to essentially, you'll put in what items you've gotten, and the map tracker will automatically show you which checks that unlocks and how many checks in which areas. So it's a great way to learn all those checks, especially if you haven't played the vanilla game in a while. It's very easy to, when you're starting off with these, to forget locations, and then all of a sudden you're like, why can't I complete my seed?
Yeah, we promise you can complete the seed. We got this question a little bit early on. I know maybe some people are rejoining after the break, but the nice thing about the settings that we're playing tonight and the standard settings that the community runs is that every seed is completable. Every check is eventually accessible. So if there's ever a situation where you think, I don't have the items I need, well, they're there. They're somewhere. You can find them, we promise. But it's, you can absolutely change the settings to make it a seed that can't be completed. You can randomize just about everything in this game, but again, not the seeds that we're running tonight. We wouldn't hurt Engel like that.
And just a quick reminder too is, if maybe you're joining us later on, or obviously over an hour into this, this video will be posted on YouTube tomorrow night. So feel free to either go back to this video if you want to intake some of this information, or watch maybe some of the tricks again. Or if you just want to start from the beginning, this will be on the Games Done Quick YouTube to check out later on.
Engel's going to do a little bit of what we call a cleanup. If maybe you've watched some other people run Randomizer, or you've heard of the Randomizer commentary, when we say cleanup, typically it just means that there are a few checks kind of scattered about an area that we can do. And we don't want it to be the one item that we need, and then we go do something else for an hour. And in this case, we did need it. Good boy, Richard, giving us the light arrows.
Definitely a necessary item. I'm also seeing in chat, someone asked if we've talked about spoiler logs yet. Nine, do you want to explain what a spoiler log is and how that can be useful, especially when you're starting off?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the spoiler log is it's essentially a log that is generated every time a seed is generated. So you can almost view it as sort of your cheat sheet that tells you not only where the items are, but the path that the seed expects you to go through to get those items. So if that sounds a little convoluted, it is a little convoluted at the start, but essentially think of it as your reference if you ever get stuck, or if you just maybe don't know that there's another check in an area. I mean, this area that we're at right now, Spirit Temple, has invisible chests that you just might not know are there, or having to use the mirror shield to light something to get a new chest as well. And the spoiler log is there to kind of give you a fallback option if you're like Nukes and I were in our first time in hour 13, and you just don't know where to find the item you need. and you find out from the spoiler log that it's your gold gauntlets inside of Gerudo Training Grounds, and you just don't know where in Gerudo Training Grounds it is. So by all means, please use the spoiler log when you're learning the game. Use it in order to keep yourself from suffering any more than needs be, and also just kind of learn the names of some of these checks and where they're located.
Yeah, and then if you did happen to forget a check, hopefully that will ingrain in your brain that, hey, that check exists and you won't ever make that mistake again.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We've certainly never forgotten checks in our life. Right, Angle? You've never forgotten.
Oh, not at all. Definitely not in this run. We're never missing anything here.
Neat little trick here that plays. Normally, you would have to wait for that cutscene to end. That involves beating the Anubis enemy there. But if you backflip off and fire, you just get to skip all that. Again, about the time save. Angle has now found all the bottles, so that's a fun little rarity that doesn't occur every time. And again, if you are just joining us, the reason why that was a big chest is we are playing with a setting called Chest Size Matches Content, which is a very handy little setting that essentially any chest that has a progression item or an item that could potentially be a progression item can be found only in the big chests, and the small chest has your consumables, your heart containers, pieces of heart, bomb chews, things of that nature. So you're gonna see Engel skip most chests that aren't big, and the blue pattern chests hold the small keys, with the large blue pattern chest holding the boss key. So very helpful setting. It saves time. For runners, they can use some cool peaks just to kind of check on some particularly time-consuming or difficult checks. And also, it just kind of streamlines the process here. If you don't play with that, you will have to check every chest, and that can add up in a big way.
Also see Engel there
Yo.
getting his 10th skull. Skulltulas do lock some checks, if you know about the Skulltula house in Kakariko Village. 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 tokens off of those Skulltulas, all lock checks. Thankfully, you don't have to ever worry about getting all 100 unless you decide to turn on 100 Skull Bridge, which, ooh, that's
on you.
That is your decision if you do that.
It is certainly a decision you can make. It's not one that I would ever recommend doing, but I mean, hey, no shame. Pull up a guide, go for it if you'd like. It's certainly a great way to learn the location of all of them. And there are seeds, particularly evil seeds, where you'll have to get 50 skulls with very, very limited equipment, right? You might have to get it with, you know, a hook shot and a bomb bag, or this boomerang is a great way to get skulls, and you'd be amazed at how many skulls you can access very, very early on. You'll be amazed. That doesn't mean it's fun. Engel did do a little flame storage there to kind of get revenge, and also demonstrating a really interesting concept. Talk just a little bit, very briefly, Engel, about the spawn points with regards to the flames and why you have to be a certain distance away from the torch?
Yeah, so one of the things I guess we didn't mention is when you do store a flame from a torch, you still have to pull out the Deku stick when you're in range of that torch. If it deloads because you've run too far away, then you kind of forgot that your flame's on fire, I guess, is the lore here. Like, no longer sees the torch. He's like, oh, I guess it's just a regular stick again. So, you saw I had to pull out the lighted stick before entering the next door there.
It's another one of those very easy tricks that can be super valuable in just saving time throughout an Ocarina of Time randomizer.
So, everybody in chat, go ahead and put your hands together if you want to clap. And also, to give Engel your strength here to hopefully get a bow that's actually a bow. We found a fake bow earlier that turned out to be an ice trap. Engel has been very good sported about it and is now going to try once again. Planted the bean earlier, as he said. Is this a real bow?
Yay!
It is.
Oh, man. I kind of wish it wasn't, though, because that would have been so funny.
I did too.
No offense, Angle.
No. You just, want me to suffer running around without a bow a little longer,
I want
right?
you to experience stream value. But that definitely, again, is a necessary item. You need that to beat not only Ganon at the end of this, but we do need that to beat our forest temple, which is a required shadow medallion reward.
We are missing still a couple very, very important items. Typically, anytime you get this far into a seed and do not have a hook shot, I would classify that as fairly uncommon. Also, we do not have any of the progressive strengths. If you all remember, in Vanilla Ocarina of Time, you have the Goron bracelet, which then powers up into the gold or silver gauntlets rather, and then that powers up into the gold gauntlets. In Ocarina of Time Randomizer, anytime that you find one of those, they could all be accessible at one time. They will all show up as the Goron bracelet at the start, and then as you grab another one, it becomes the silver gauntlets and the gold gauntlets here. So it was a little convoluted of an explanation, but essentially there are 3 strengths in this seed. We don't know if we can access them all yet, but it always goes in the order of Goron bracelet, silver gauntlets, and gold gauntlets. Engel's not going to be able to walk up and find the silver gauntlets anywhere. It just means that he's found 2 strengths. So still quite a bit of work that needs to be done in order to get to that stage of it, but we do have plenty of checks to be had as Engel starts his ride about the field.
So, Engel, what are you thinking routing-wise at this point?
So right now, I'm kind of leaning back towards our hints, where we know Gerudo Training Grounds is on the path to Bongo Bongo and the Shadow Temple. So kind of what I'm doing now is riding around the field, clearing up some of these grottos that have chests in them, and then riding on over to that area, the training grounds, to see maybe what we could find over there that is our path.
Again, highlighting kind of the importance of those hint stones, giving that valuable information here to kind of help. There's so much to explore here in Ocarina of Time, so being able to kind of hone in on areas that you might want to focus on are super valuable, or even areas that you want to ignore. Like we got that Jabu Jabu was foolish, and although Engel has the items to go through Jabu Jabu, he knows I am thankfully not going to have to enter that fish and spend the time dragging myself through there for 4 checks.
Yeah, Rudo stays gone in this seed. So sorry to all the Rudo fans out there, but just not getting out of the fish this time. One other thing to kind of note here, and we touched on this earlier, so I wanted to kind of re-reference it here, but Engel mentioned that the Gerudo Training Grounds are an area that we're going to need to go. There are actually a couple ways to access Gerudo Training Grounds, and we fortunately have one of those. So in Gerudo Valley, there is a big gap, and there are 2 ways to get over it. You can ride Epona, which we have access to, or use the long shot to get across it. And then there's another avenue, which involves crossing the Haunted Wasteland in reverse. You can actually do it. The loading zones don't change if you come in from the backside. I don't know if we're going to see that here, given that Engel is relatively close to it with Epona. It's just quicker, but it's another really interesting way to kind of break the game, where if Engel, let's say, didn't have Epona's song, but wanted to go to Gerudo Training Grounds, he has Requiem of Spirit, he could run across the desert backwards, and that's a trick that you'll see a lot of runners utilize in races, and even just once they kind of learn the trick. It's never required to do, which is the nice thing for those of you out there who maybe say, I don't know if I want to do that, because it does sound pretty daunting, and it is a little bit difficult to learn your way through, but again, fortunately, the game's got your back. You're never going to have to do it under these current settings, but just to highlight here, Engel's got a few ways to get it, a few different tools to go there, and he's got a couple of them available to him right now.
Did see a question in chat about Logic won't ever consider reverse haunted wasteland, right? Unless you set that, there is a setting where you can set like what tricks are enabled, but typically that is not a required thing you need to know, and that's definitely, I'd say, a more advanced trick in these seeds.
Yeah, under normal settings, the game will never expect you to go backwards through the wasteland, and even going forwards through it, it will expect a few items to be in your inventory, like the Lens of Truth and magic, to see the ghost that normally helps you on your way through there.
Utilizing bomb shoes to check that, make sure it wasn't anything we actually needed. There are 2 checks to get here. Well, I guess 3 technically, including the one that Engel just got, but 3 checks here in Gerudo Valley. And this is an area that a lot of people, I guess, will kind of skip. It only has these 3 checks, and it's just a little bit out of the way. 2 of those checks you're usually expected to only be able to get as a child, so that's why we've come here a little bit later. But now that we're in Gerudo Fortress, we get to hear the lovely Gerudo soundtrack, and Engel's going to take a step in. One other nice setting as we're talking about quality of life, we only need to save 1 guard here instead of getting all 4 and wasting all of our times in this stealth sequence. You see that Engel's going to have a nice little chat here, going to throw a Deku Nut to stun this guard. The Big Goron Sword going to make this even easier. Down she goes, there's our key, and we're going to be able to get access to Gerudo's training grounds very, very quickly here.
Another
so
big
quality of
quality
life.
of life here, and we only have to free 1 of these carpenters. We don't have to go through and free all of them, so saves a lot of time there. Just cut out some of the more repetitive, boring parts of this game, I'd say.
Now we can ride about and do as we'd like, and there's a couple checks to grab here, but as Engel mentioned earlier, the big reason we're here is for Gerudo Training Grounds. And Gerudo Training Grounds in Randomizer, I would say it's just a very, very cool area. In the base game, you never need to do anything there in order to progress. The ice arrows, of course, are not actually needed for anything, so you don't need to grab them. But in Randomizer, this area takes on a much different role. There are a lot of chests in there, and oftentimes this might have one of the items that you need. In this case, we know that we need it. So again, just another area that got a lot of new life here in the randomized settings. Engel's gonna go ahead and shoot for horseback archery here, and Nukes, I'll just pass it over to you here. There's a little more quality of life that Engel's gonna showcase here.
I was just about to say, one of the neat things is some of the mini games are sped up. Normally you'd have to, there's 2 checks off of this when you get 1,000 points and 1 when you get 1,500 points. However, with Randomizer, we only have to just, if you get 1,500 the first time, you get both rewards right away. You don't have to play the game twice. You can also see this with the Dompe race that we did earlier. As long as you get under a minute the first time through, you get both of those items as well. Just again, helps speed up everything.
We like speed. Speaking of speed, you can make some of these jumps without needing the hover boots here. You see that Engel is very quickly scaling to the top of Gerudo's Fortress here. Normally you'd be expected to walk in and out, but if you've got the jumps, you can do that, and the hover boots make that even easier. And speaking of jumps, Engel kind of going against the point I was trying to make there, but we'll be back up, we're fine. And we will be able to cross this little gap with the hover boots as well, so can't really see. I don't think I caught what size that chest was, but we'll know very shortly here. It's a small chest, but we could cross over there with the hover boots if necessary.
Again, we're playing with a setting called chest size matches contents. We're at the point where we're kind of skipping the smaller ones because we know those aren't going to be progressive items. Those will hold things like money, heart pieces, bomb refills, arrow refills that aren't really necessary to finish the game, but can be helpful. We're looking for bigger chests, which are going to have progressive items inside.
Take a peek here. This really comes into play in this dungeon because you can see all the way through.
Right.
And how about that? Angle can peek right
We
there.
see a big chest right there, so Engo knows that he's going to want to get a key to grab that. There's a key.
Asking you shall receive.
Which you can see, so in dungeons, again, to review over that, the small keys are in chests that have that texture on it that you see with the boss key chests in the vanilla game. So we know right away what we're getting in those chests. Ooh.
Wow.
There we go.
Angle, you are so lucky. I was about to have you explain the entirety of hookshot-less GTG.
I know, I was looking forward to a new tricks here, but the game provides, right?
Yeah, and this is the hookshot. We talked earlier about bombs being a very, very important item that has so many universal applications. The hookshot, not too far behind that. The hookshot gets you into Forest Temple. It sometimes can be what gets you into Fire Temple. It's what gets you into Water Temple. It's needed to get through Shadow Temple logically. So there are not many scenarios where you will get through a seed without getting at least one hook shot. And we know we need both of them because we have to beat Water Temple. So a pretty good find here in GTG.
Oh, how many people in chat are fans of the toilet? We're not doing that. Hopefully not.
We can't do it, but even if we could, we're just not going to do that. That's well, now that we've called it toilet, I feel like we have to do it. So, Engel, real quick, figure out a way to do it without without iron boots, and we would like to.
You know, there's a lot of tricks in this game, but I think that one might be a little too tough.
I mean, you got a lot of items. Could you just like weigh down Link, maybe?
Yeah, maybe the Megaton hammer can, serve as a fake iron boots, right?
But there is, I see a couple questions. Toilet? There is a check that we so lovingly refer to as the toilet in Gerudo Training Ground. It's essentially, you have to grab all those silver rupees in that one room, which unlocks another room where you play Song of Time to get into this big, giant pool of spinning water that you also have to collect some silver rupees in. And we fondly call it the toilet. Oh, another big chest, though, here.
I'm sorry, is that 4 that are in here now? The gold scale? Are you kidding me? You know, we built this place up as an area that has lots of stuff, and that's kind of a generalization. There's a lot of checks here, and oftentimes it has what you need, but no, there are certainly times you'll come here and not find anything. Engel's just finding everything here, so he has paid his dues getting unlucky in this area enough, I guess. Very nice movement through this room, and this was one of the rooms that Engel was going to have to explain to you how to get through without hookshot. I won't go too far into the details because it's kind of getting into the weeds, but there are a number of tricks that you can use here in GTG to pass areas where you would normally need a hookshot. But again, you all listening probably have guessed it. The game will never expect you to do any of those tricks under normal settings. So thankfully, even more tricks that you are not required to learn. Much more approachable than that. Engel was just going to get a chance to show off, but alas, not this time. If some of these checks look new to you, They did to me too. I'm not sure that I ever touched this area when I was playing through the vanilla game as a kid. Again, probably don't need to, so it's again just another area that you'll see visited a lot. This is actually one of the checks that Angle passed by earlier, or got to peek earlier. It's connected, and what a great check to find back here. Hey, Angle, find 2 more of those real quick for me, would you?
And here we were talking about the training grounds having all these wonderful items for us, and just a little bit of ice, huh? Just gotta mess with us a little here, huh?
No, it can't be that nice. So Engle's gonna pop back out this way now. There's one more check here in Gerudo Valley that he didn't get earlier, and this might be a good time to talk a little bit, and I'll actually pass it to you for this one, Angle, to talk about save warping, because it is another, again, a trick that you never expected to be able to do, but certainly something that comes in handy when you're in dungeons and trying to get back to them quickly.
Yeah, so save warping we use all the time. It's kind of a, you could save in the dungeon, run out here, check these checks, and then if you don't find anything, you just reset your game and links back in the dungeon, right? Instead of having to run all the way back around through the overworld here.
Yep, no need to do it. And also, you'll probably see in Water Temple, once we finally get everything we need to go do it, it also sends you back to the beginning of the dungeon. So in certain dungeons like Water Temple, oftentimes the quickest path through might involve doing one part of the dungeon, save quitting, and then starting back at the front of the dungeon. And it's also a great way to what we call scumming with your keys. So in Water Temple in particular, there are a couple of areas that require 2 keys to get to. But if we go back there and find its item we don't need, let's just quit. Let's just not save, and we'll end back at the start of the dungeon with both of our keys and allow us to explore more without actually having to do those checks. So a pretty nice, interesting technique that you'll see Engel kind of make use of. And again, another trick that doesn't take really anything to learn. It's really not even a trick, but here we see Engel dealing with the most annoying enemy in the game, and he's gonna do a little cleanup here in Lake Hylia. And this is another check that Engel's making use of doing it the way that you're supposed to do it, but if he had hover boots, he could utilize the hook shot and the hover boots, or I'm sorry, the iron boots rather. Iron boots down to the bottom, use the hook shot, and then take the boots off. As you're hook shotting over, the game registers that as you being at the depth of 9. But instead, we're doing it the actual way, and a pretty nice reward there, Engel, magic.
That is, again, definitely hard required. You do need that magic so that you can beat Ganon, which you're always going to have to do in these seeds. Additionally, that gets us into the Shadow Temple. You need Din's Fire to light all the torches to get in there, so that is one of our required dungeons. Gets us our Spirit Medallion, which we need to spawn the bridge to Ganon's castle. So definitely a great find there.
Yeah, so
Great.
as we talked about, we went kind of around the world looking for items here because we had no medallion dungeons we could beat, and now kind of gathering up hookshot, bow, magic. Suddenly, we find ourselves able to now go into the Shadow Temple. That fish was not big enough. We
What a rare mechanic. I can't believe you did this on stream, Engel.
Yeah, you want to talk about the what happened with the fish there and why they kind of messed me up? Or shall I?
I mean, Yeah, go ahead here, because the slight rage that you'll be talking about it with, I think will add a little extra flavor to it as compared to my very dry explanation.
Yeah, so almost all times of the day, you'll see this fish over in this particular spot. Very nice. You can just go catch him every single time. It'll be the right one. However, there are two very specific times of day, dawn and dusk, where the fish like to all meet up and have a little party. And I kind of walked in here at that moment and attracted kind of all of them there, getting the wrong one. A little lost of time, but we're all right.
I remember the first time that I saw Engel run into that, and his reaction to it was much less muted than it is now. I believe he used the word stupid game mechanic a couple times to talk about it, because there are so few things in this game. So Ocarina of Time, I guess just a little background, does have a legitimate clock, right? There are actual hours, and okay, I was going to say, how creative are we getting with this?
This is advanced tech here.
He's got a...
I was like, when did you learn this? I didn't think that... but I guess to pull back, there are just a few things in this game that do rely on the game's internal clock. One of them is Dampé digging, which I know, pretty infamous in the Ocarina of Time community, but you can only find him at certain hours of the night. Not any hour will do. It's the early hours of the night that you can find him. And then, of course, as Engel unwittingly showed you there, the fish also have a little bit of time. But Engel, go ahead and talk just a little bit about Shadow Temple, because it's a dungeon that is a little bit different than some of the others we've shown. We talked a little bit earlier about how some dungeons you can skip most of depending on where the boss key is. Shadow Temple, not so much.
Yeah, so Shadow Temple is a pretty linear dungeon. We're going to have to go through. We need 5 keys and the boss key to be able to get to the end. And we're still missing some important items for other dungeons, so we kind of need to, see if we can find other things in here too. There's also a lot of items you kind of need to be able to even go through this dungeon if we want to maybe go over those.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point here, and you can of course take a look kind of at the tracker over on the side there, but this is a dungeon that requires a lot. Like Engel said, of course we need Nocturne of Shadow just to access this place before anything, so that's a song that we have to have. We do need the magic in Din's Fire, as Nuke's kind of said, to enter it even beyond that. You need the hover boots in order to progress over the gap. You of course can't hook shots. There's nothing to hook shot on the other side. You need bombs to get through this next region that Engel's about to get into, and you are expected to have hookshot as well in order to advance past a certain point. And on top of all of that, if you get all the way to the end and don't have Zelda's Lullaby, well, then you're not moving the boat either. So that's 2 songs, a handful of items. There's a lot that needs to be done to beat this dungeon.
Now, obviously, that is quite a laundry list of items required to complete this dungeon. However, you could be expected to pop in here, maybe get a different item or find one of those items in a dungeon. That can happen in any of the dungeons as well. So don't ever be scared to enter a dungeon without having all the required items, because sometimes your progression will be in that dungeon the first time dipping in there. Sometimes you are required to dip into a dungeon a number of times.
It's always a bad feeling when it's the last place you go. And that will happen. That will happen. So one of the other cool things about this dungeon is there's a lot of really nice movement tech that you can use in this dungeon to kind of speed up a couple of these areas. Because some of this, you'll see there's some Skulltulas over in this area. Engel's going to go right up to one of them, use Din's Fire here, and that's actually going to clear all 3 of the Skulltulas that are very annoyingly blocking your way. Normally you'd have to get rid of them, throw a Deku Nut or something like that, but why do that when you have Din's Fire? Get rid of them there. We're going to side hop right past this one. Gonna back walk here, go ahead and do a little side hopping here, and now we're back into this area. Quick as you like.
Yeah, I think Shadow Temple is one of those, kind of more fun ones to watch when you kind of get that nice, smooth movement through it. I remember back in like the season 4 tournament days, I think I was watching Pink Kitty Rose, she was, a really good runner in that tournament, and just watching her movement in this dungeon really helped me learn how to kind of get through here quickly.
Yeah, lots of fantastic runners. And, this might be just kind of a good time as Engel's making some of these other checks to just kind of note how varied and good the community is. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but for those of you just joining us, there are races for this all the time. I mean, 2 or 3 a week that are open entry, and there's just about always a stream going on that has a couple players racing. There's multiple different formats. There's co-op format where you have 2 players sharing information with each other against another team of 2. There's multi-world, which randomizes multiple items between all players' seeds. Lots of great ways to enjoy it. Always somebody running that you can learn from. And in my experience, they've all been quite willing to share their information and tech, because we certainly aren't the ones discovering this. Many bright, smart people have come before us, and they're always willing to share the tricks, like the one Engel just did.
Yeah, definitely a lot. If you are enjoying this tonight and you want to just learn more, we will have more shows of this, but additionally, there's just a lot of great, streamers, restreams that also do Ocarina of Time Randomizer. There's a little stream, twitch.tv/nuclear_reaction. Heard she does a lot of them too.
Wait, who's that?
Pretty much every day I hear.
So if you want to learn, there's lots of great people out there. Go ahead and, maybe look up Ocarina of Time on the directory on Twitch as well. You can see if anyone's doing randomizer. People are always super... I've had a lot of great experience with people sharing knowledge as well. I have been sharing also in the chat, for those of you watching here on Twitch, a link to Zelda speedruns that has more information of getting started. I'll go ahead and repost that again. But if you are interested in getting started on your own, there's a lot of great information on that website.
So, Engel, I'm going to make a very selfish request, and that is that I want you to do the wind room without the iron boots, because we can very easily explain why the iron boots are required, but there is a specific movement pattern.
You're putting the pressure on me with
and
that
a
one.
cycle to it. I am indeed, but there is a specific movement pattern that you can use to get through the cycle of a room that has a number of fans that doesn't need the iron boots, and it moves very, very quickly, I might add. So we're gonna put the pressure here on Engel to get through it, but I know a couple people in chat were asking for it. It looks really cool, and frankly, it's the fastest way to get through the room anyway. So I think Engel probably would have tried for it, but if you're thinking about not doing it, well, pressure is on, my friends.
All right, well, we'll give it a try here, see how it goes. It is a pretty difficult trick, so no promises if we don't get it here, but basically we want to come in this door and get up against this wall, make 4 side hops, backwalk here. I need to equip Deku Nuts as I talk. Side hop a couple times. I think we missed it, so I'm going to abort that. We'll try it again. One more time for the fans.
For the fans.
The angle of my walk there was a little off. And there we go. So we threw a Deku Nut to stun the skull, and then a little help from our hover boots over the gaps. Pretty quick way to get through that room. But of course, again, it's a hard trick. You saw me mess it up the first time. So don't be afraid. Like, if you have the iron boots, they're very helpful in that room too. to let you go through with the wind blowing.
And even if you don't have the iron boots, you can absolutely wait out the fans as well. So that's a cool thing to do. Engel's gonna equip the bomb shoes here to show you another cool little thing you can do with those bomb shoes, which is if you throw a Deku Nut once the bomb shoe goes, it does immediately explode the bomb shoe. So that's a cool little way to do that. There's also some cool backflip tech that you can do to make a bomb shoe explode instantly. So bomb shoe is a pretty cool item to see in use. Because we have another big chest here, and we're starting to get to the back of this dungeon, and it's the Lens of Truth. Are we gonna do 1 in 32? Are we gonna play the treasure chest game?
For the
We might have
fans.
to.
For the fans?
I don't know. We already left the fans.
But have the fans left us?
The fans
But,
were inside our hearts the whole time.
Nice relaxing boat ride here in the Shadow Temple. We've mentioned a couple times here, you're not getting past this if you don't have Zelda's Lullaby, so keep that in mind as you're delving into the depths. And fortunately, these fierce Stalfos, they don't want to attack you if you stand on a certain spot. So Engel's gonna take a step up here and, just take a little stretch.
Yeah. So you could fight these friendly fellas here, but turns out if you just stand up top of the back of the boat, kind of just walk off on their own. Oh, he's thinking about it. And there they go. It's a nice little trick if you don't want to have to do an extra fight there.
So here we are in the back of Shadow Temple. As Engel mentioned, you do need boss key and 5 keys in order to get through here. We actually have everything we need to complete the dungeon at this point from a key standpoint. You can see that Engel still has 1 small key, and I believe we grabbed the boss key early on, but we still need items. So Engel's gonna go ahead and do this check. This first one, the Crusher Room, which very aptly called, I would say, requires Din's Fire to get through it. You do need Din's Fire. 2 chests in here. And Engel's also going to be hoping for a piece of heart or something here because his health is a little low. And Bongo Bongo is, unlike King Dodongo here, I shouldn't disrespect the king, but Bongo Bongo can actually mix you up a little bit as we find our first strength as well. So we really needed to come back here. And frankly, we should have had a strength at this point in the seed anyway with some of the things that we have cleared. Engel, go ahead and talk a little bit about, like, again, just kind of that strength being there and what that means for the seed as a whole.
Yeah. Well, so I don't honestly remember if we found a small key or not in that falling spike room, because that kind of dictates in this dungeon logically whether you would have needed a strength to be back here, but in most cases you would need a strength earlier on in this dungeon. So a little wild that we're, all the way at the back of Shadow, and that's the first one I found, but it's randomizer and we're trying to go fast here, so I actually wanted to bring up another kind of point with that Lens of Truth. So we kind of saw me fly through a lot of the parts of this dungeon, a lot of invisible platforms, moving platforms, things like that, maybe you haven't played this game in a decade and you're not so familiar with where all of that is, right? So you're like, whoa, like even this room, you're like, where are you standing? Well, I know where the ledges are, but you might not. So if you're just starting out, like, maybe you want to give yourself the Lens of Truth at the beginning of the game. 9, maybe you want to mention how that's kind of possible in this, right?
It is, yeah, absolutely. We've kind of talked a little bit about being able to customize your seed. Well, you can also customize what items you start with. And starting the seed with the Lens of Truth for free, a very, very fair and great way to start the game is you're learning it. I started by giving myself the Kokiri sword at the start of each seed, which is also another really good way to kind of get comfortable, so that you don't have to rely on just Deku sticks to do your fighting as a child. And absolutely feel free to start with anything you'd like to give yourself the best opportunity to learn how the game goes and to make the experience just more enjoyable, because that's what we're all here for. As I give that explanation, Engel demonstrates a pretty clean bongo fight.
I also want to say we're coming up on the 2-hour mark here, Engel. So if you want to again count us down when you're done leaving Shadow Temple,
Yeah,
be a
for
great
sure.
time to take our second wellness break of the night.
How do you always manage to do this, Engel? You time it perfectly. I promise this isn't pre-recorded.
Pre-recorded. But yeah, we can count it down a second here when this cutscene ends. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and stop.
Hey, all you cool cats and gamers! Welcome back to Ocarina Improv, the new GDQ Hotfix show special that dives in depth into Zelda Ocarina of Time Randomizer. I'm your host, Nuclear Reaction, and tonight I've got with me 9 whole grains and Engel as we explain Ocarina of Time Randomizer and what it entails. We just finished our 4th dungeon, so we only need 2 more medallions left to finish this seed. We still have to venture into Forest Temple and Water Temple to get our last 2 required medallions, which will grant us the bridge to Ganon's castle and let us get in there and beat Ganon. Before we get back, though, I do have a few announcements. Unapologetically Black and Fast submissions are now open. Submissions will be open until January 23rd, scheduled to be released February 1st. Type command UBAF for the link for the submission form. Also, if you are watching on YouTube, go to twitch.tv/gamesdonequick if you're interested in looking at our live content starting most nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. Tune in tomorrow for Going Places at 1 p.m. Eastern, a show about handheld games and regional exclusives. I'm going to pass things back over to 9 Grains and Engel if we want to maybe explain what do we have left to do in the seed before we can finish.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Nukes. We have only 2 medallions left that we need to grab, those being in the Forest Temple and the Water Temple. So Engel and I were chatting a little bit behind the scenes, but Engel, we really only need 1 more item to finish this seed.
Yeah, we are really just looking for the long shot required for Water Temple now. We just picked up that strength upgrade and the iron boots in Shadow here. So we're going to be able to make our way over to Forest Temple and beat that one next. We'll probably stop here in Kakariko real quick for a couple things while we're over here, though.
And again, for those of you who maybe are just joining us or unfamiliar with Ocarina of Time Randomizer, we will need to grab all 6 of these medallions in order to spawn the bridge to get to Ganon's tower, to beat Ganon, to finish the seed. But Engel, I think we've had you pause long enough. Let's go ahead and get this back on the road.
Yeah, all right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
As Engel mentioned, we will be heading to Forest Temple here after we do this brief cleanup here. The Forest Temple does require the hook shot to enter, and in order to finish it, we will need the bow, which we have, and we are logically required to have a strength as well. So, those of you who've been watching all the way through might know that we just found our first strength. We got the Goron bracelet in the very back of Shadow Temple, so we have not been able to do Forest Temple until just recently. So, kind of fun here. We went through the Shadow Temple, which is a linear dungeon, and the Forest Temple, much the same. We'll talk just a little bit more about the Forest Temple once we get there, but again, we want to thank everybody for sticking around with the seed here on our first episode of Ocarina Improv. And now you'll get to see Engel play a little mini game. This is another shooting gallery, the adult shooting gallery, or the bow game, sometimes it's called. It's actually the same as the child, but they just, well, I guess they randomized when the rupees come out. That's not something Ocarina specific, everybody, or rando specific here. They actually just do this. Again, Engel's going to be just doing a few of these tricks here, these checks here rather, just to make sure that it doesn't have something he needs. Oftentimes, as you're going through the seed, you can get a little sidetracked and you can leave a check behind in an area that you've already been, and that might be the item that you need. So oftentimes you'll see runners grab what they can in the area that they're at until they have all the items they need, and then they'll start skipping. We're going to see Engel warp to the Death Mountain crater, and Engel, why don't you go ahead and tell people, well, I thought he was going to Forest Temple. Why did he come here?
Well, we don't have the Minuet of Forest yet, so it turns out the fastest way over to the Forest Temple is kind of come through here, through Goron City, go into that connector to Lost Woods, and then up into Sacred Forest Meadow here. Again, trying to, maximize what we do have as opposed to what we don't here. Like, no Minuet, but Bolero, close enough, right?
Yeah, close enough. We'll warp to a volcano instead of a forest, but, it's again another way of doing kind of the same thing that we need to do. You could always just certainly run down the fields, but, why run down the field if you can warp and do it there? And Engel's now demonstrating a trick called Mido Skip.
Being tough.
Or maybe he's demonstrating it. He is quick, the quickest feat in all of Hyrule here, but that's a trick that you can use in order to skip Mido here. We do have Saria's Song, so Engel could have played Saria's Song to move Mido out of the way, and that is what he'd be expected to do normally, either get here via Minuet of Forest or by Saria's Song. But if in the event that you don't have either of those, you can absolutely do that nice little lined up trick that Engel did there. Backflip over the top of Mido, skip him there, and again, you all have probably gotten a little tired of hearing me say this, but you will never be expected to do that under current settings. So if that's a trick you don't want to learn, certainly don't have to in order to finish the seed.
Ooh, we just got Song of Storms here. That's interesting because that does open up our bottom of the well. There's a couple other miscellaneous checks that also opens up throughout Hyrule, but hopefully we don't have to see Engel have to utilize that to go into another dungeon here, but that is now a possibility. We still do need that long shot.
You still need a long shot, and it's funny, in the wellness break, Engel and I were chatting, and he very nervously said, I hope my Sacred Forest Meadow song isn't Song of Storms. So naturally, as soon as he said that guaranteed that it would be Song of Storms. That is normally where you would get the Minuet of Forest in Vanilla Ocarina of Time. Again, if anyone is just joining us, all of the song locations have been shuffled. So obviously you don't get Song of Storms from this location in Vanilla Ocarina of Time. It's been shuffled alongside all of the dungeon rewards and the items all throughout the seed. So, Engel, go ahead and talk just a little bit now, similarly to how you did in Shadow Temple, about Forest Temple, because you've got pretty much all the items you need to kind of tackle this temple in any way that you'd like.
Right. Normally, in the classic game, you would come in here, not have a bow, right? You have to go deep into this dungeon to find that. But in this case, we already have everything, so kind of frees us up to move around a little bit differently than you would in the classic Ocarina game. So you might see me here make a way towards the push block area, loop around the courtyard that way. As we see a big chest here, could this be our long shot?
Come on.
Oh. Or another strength.
Very interesting. So this strength, Engel could have gotten earlier, right? So in order to get to here, all Engel needed was Saria's Song, which we have had for quite a while, and that hook shot that he ended up getting in I believe it was Gerudo Training Grounds that he found it in. So this was a strength that he could have gotten before the strength that he got inside of Shadow Temple. Now, as you all know, we got through Shadow Temple just fine. Engel knows the tricks. He's good at the game. But again, kind of an interesting way to think of it. If he had come here earlier without his strength, he would have found one there and been able to do more of the dungeon. But that was then, this is now. You're going to see Engel do some fun tricks here with the hover boots. He told you exactly how he was going to do it, using the hover boots to get into the courtyard, as we have another big chest, a loaded forest temple.
Fingers crossed our long shots in there.
Yeah, we could hope, but again, it's kind of as Engel said, you're normally expected to enter here with your Song of Time, use your Song of Time to get to the courtyard, get some checks in there, move further up, but if you come in here with the bow or with the hover boots, you can do it out of order. I don't believe this! What in the world?
One of these has to be the long shot, right?
Yeah,
one of them. Not that one, but you know.
I think this is the first time that I have seen 3 large chests in the first handful of checks in Forest Temple. That is not usually how this dungeon goes.
Yeah, so another little trick here, since we have the iron boots, we don't actually have to lower the water here. We can just hook shot this chest, and Link will open it up for us.
There were some people in chat earlier discussing, I know, the scariest Zelda dungeons, the scariest Zelda temples, and people saying, have they ever made one as scary as the Shadow Temple? Well, I will be the contrarian here. I always found the Forest Temple to be scarier than the Shadow Temple. And maybe I'm in the extreme minority with regards to that, but there was just something about this place that was always very unsettling to me in a mysterious sort of way. Oh, you're going all out.
We'll give it one try, right?
Sure. So this is another very difficult trick that Engel got first try there. So I'll just go ahead and let you explain why that is useful and fun and why you went out of your way to show people.
Yeah, that's a fun little one. Normally you would have to go all the way around to that falling ceiling room late in the dungeon, come out a door above me to call up Pierre. It's kind of like a shortcut if you wanted to, like, you know, play through some of this dungeon, take a break, right? But in actuality, if you do a cute little trick with the hover boots and get on the top of that other little doorway, you can call Pierre from a distance. And here we are. Staring down another big chest, yeah.
4! Are you kidding me? Come on, long shot. Well, we have the potential to be rich. We are not currently, but this is, earlier we mentioned that the Forest Temple is fairly linear, and we've kind of undermined our own point here by doing it completely out of order, but the important thing to note here is that you do need to beat all 4 of the Poe sisters in order to make the elevator come up, and you need to beat 3 Poe sisters in order to make the purple Poe come up. So this is all to say that we're going to have to go through the full dungeon. So even if Engel finds an early boss key, we will still have to go through the dungeon in a more traditional sense, but he's being nice to us and showing us the most out of order way that you can break this dungeon.
Just a reminder, you definitely don't need to know how to do a trick like that Engel did. The fun thing that you can do if you choose.
Yeah, for sure the game will never expect you to do that kind of trick. You know, really you just kind of go around this dungeon the normal way of pushing these blocks and through the pose, but yeah, that's kind of the fun of ZOOTR is as you progress, you learn new tricks, right? And and get new, interesting ways to explore these dungeons.
And you actually have another cool trick that you can show people here, making use of some of the bomb jumps. I don't believe we've shown them that in a while, so I don't know if you were planning on taking it that way, but it might be a good time to show people ground jumping.
Ground jumping is one of the most useful tricks. I definitely recommend learning that earlier on. Definitely, that's one of the first tricks I recommend to new runners of this game. Super useful all throughout Hyrule.
Yeah, and there's a number of different ways to learn this trick, so you don't have to do it the way I'm doing it here, but what I usually do is kind of place a bomb down, walk back a little, hold Z and R, and just start rolling into the bomb. And then Link will stop at some point in that. And like so, the bomb will explode on his shield. That'll store your ground jump. And when you go to do a backflip, you kind of just do a normal little jump there instead.
Combining that with the hover boots, that cuts out a very big chunk of time. You can see, even with the faster block pushing and pulling in this case, a very nice quality of life adjustment made to ZOOTR, it still takes quite a bit of time. It's a lot of blocks and it has to be pushed pretty far. So this is another way, again, to kind of speed up your path through the dungeon. Pushing the blocks in the normal place is totally fine, but if you can do a little faster, why not?
And if Engel's method of doing a ground jump doesn't butter your toast, there's so many different methods of ground jumping. I definitely recommend checking those out on YouTube. There's tons of different ways to do it and finding one that works for you.
Unbelievable. We find a chest that isn't a large chest.
Yeah, and again, like when you're just starting out with this game and the randomizer, you really just don't have to worry about these tricks, right? You can just focus on like the logic puzzle aspect of this game. That's kind of, the main thing that really got us all into this was just how randomized all of the items, the songs, even where the dungeons are located or the bosses are at, and all this craziness you can put in, and then have this puzzle in your mind that you have to figure out. Okay, I got this item in this weird spot. What does that let me do now? Where can I go next? Which dungeon leads to the next one? That's not your typical order in Ocarina here.
Absolutely, and I mean, every seed is different, right? That's the kind of the beauty of this is, Engel's done a few cool tricks to kind of go out of order here. We've done a couple dungeons maybe earlier than we were expected to do them, but there are so many just absolutely sadistic seeds that can be pulled together where you can, you'd be amazed at some of the ways that this game can puzzle you and trick you. And, every time that you boot up Ocarina of Time Randomizer, you generate a new seed, you're going to get a new experience. You're going to get a new puzzle that you have to solve. And that's, I think, a really, again, it speaks to the replayability, right? The pieces are all good. You can run through these dungeons so many times and it just never quite gets boring. And like Engel said, that's what got us into it and what keeps us coming back. The tricks are nice and all, but it's still the same stuff, and by golly, we love it.
If you love this game, this is just a great way to make it more and more replayable. I also suggest there's a lot of randomizers for other games out there, so maybe there's other games that are really beloved to you, like Link to the Past. We saw Ori and the Blind Forest earlier today. Something to look into. Also, we haven't really gotten to talk about, we haven't talked about Deku Nuts and how useful they are in combat. Yeah. We kind of glanced over that. We just saw utilizing those Poe fights there, as well as the Stalfos room. how useful those are with combat in this game and how underappreciated they definitely were in most people's vanilla playthroughs. Right there, even freezing that Skulltula there so that we can just roll right away, don't have to bother with it.
Yeah, I'm now gonna put in a request order for Engel to damage Ganon with a Deku Nut. Doesn't have to do the entirety of it, but I mean, Deku Nuts are a panacea. Like, you have a fight you can't beat, just sprinkle some Deku Nuts into it. It'll go fine. Like, need to get through an area quicker? Just throw a Deku Nut at it. You'll probably get through a little quicker. Regrettably, you always seem to have just like 2 or 3 fewer Deku Nuts than you actually want to have, but yeah, there's so many items in this game that have multiple uses that vanilla Ocarina of Time really doesn't let you get to explore, and I would say Deku Nuts are absolutely on the top of that list. Even if they're never a progression item, they're just, I mean, I almost wish that D-pad up was Deku Nuts. Like, just put them there, because we need them all the time.
All right, it looks like we are... Unfortunately, we're finishing this dungeon without having found that long shot that we are really longing to see. Engel, what's kind of your thought process for where you're going to go after the Forest Temple?
Oh, my thought process now is every, I guess, rando player's nightmare. I'm saying I'm in danger, right? We've kind of gone through our hints, got some items off of those. And now I'm sitting here with all the items to be able to beat Spirit Temple. We got that Song of Storms for the bottom of the well. We also turned in Rudo's letter earlier, so Ice Cavern is kind of available to us as another option. So, you know, we really have a lot of good choices here, and we're kind of getting to the luck part of this one, huh?
Yep, this is what we affectionately, or maybe not so affectionately, call casino mode, because it could be anywhere at this point. Like Engel said, there's no more... There's not really any logic that we can use. There's no problem-solving process of elimination that we can really use at this point. We just kind of have to check places with more density, and I guess in layman's terms, when we're talking about density, it's just areas that have more checks available. We're strictly playing a numbers game at this point. And of course, that doesn't always pay out either. Sometimes it's the last place you look, and you know, in those seeds, all you can really do is laugh and hope for better luck next time. There is a little bit RNG in this game, just a touch. Here we have what's usually a pretty difficult boss fight, or a somewhat pesky boss fight. There are some ways that you can make it much quicker. You see Engel using his ranged options there to force Phantom Ganon to play tennis a little early. When you're close to Phantom Ganon and he's on the ground, he's not able to react in time to hit back to you, so you can get a quick stun. And there you saw Engel with the jump slash, the 2 power crouch stabs, which do store that jump slash. And down goes Phantom Ganon. That is the Big Goron sword. It's important to note that it's not quite so easy with the Master Sword. That one cycle can be done, but the timing is very tight. But we don't have to worry about that, because we have the Big Goron sword. A very nice fight from Engel there. And now that is 5, count them, 5 of the medallions that we need, and a whole world open to us. So Engel, where are we headed now?
Well, you know, I was hoping that item there we got off of having the Spirit and Shadow medallions, the normal Ice with Light Arrow cutscene, right? Which gets a randomized item. Not what I was hoping for, so your guess is as good as mine at this point. I'm gonna try the well first, I think.
Not a bad spot. There's quite a number of checks in that well. Haven't been able to go there yet since we just recently got that song, so hopefully it pays out here and we don't have to keep searching for that needle in a haystack.
Are we gonna do chickens for the fans, Engel, or are we gonna do that after bottom of the well?
Gotta go.
All right, our runner is gone. Thank you everybody for tuning in to Ocarina Improv. Regrettably, the seed ends with 5 medallions.
All right, chat. We need all the good vibes for the long shot. That is the only item we are missing. Once we get that long shot, we'll be able to finish up this Ocarina of Time Randomizer seed.
So close, yet so far. Bottom of the well functions pretty similarly to Gerudo Training Grounds. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but Gerudo Training Grounds, an area that has a lot of checks that you can very quickly look at and peek and determine if you need them. And of course, it being a mini dungeon, sub dungeon, whatever you'd like to call it, doesn't have a dungeon reward at the end of it. So there are seeds that you'll never need to show up here, but Engel will be able to blast through this pretty quickly. We're really well kitted at this point, as Engel demonstrates you know, if you don't have your Deku Nuts on, just throw a bomb at it, why not? But again, we're really well kitted at this point. Engel's gonna be able to get through this dungeon very quickly. But this is another dungeon where the gear that you have when you come in changes a lot. You saw that he was able to use a bomb there at the start to access a check or take a peek at a check. And here he's gonna run to the back and play Zelda's Lullaby in order to lower the water. So if you could come in here with just Song of Storms, not have bombs, not have Zelda's Lullaby, and do a few checks, get Zelda's Lullaby, come back here later, do a couple more checks, get bombs, come back here later, do a couple more checks. It's never ideal to do it that way, but sometimes the seed will ask you to do that. And you know, bottom of the well is it's a fickle place, truly. Gonna make use here of this boomerang. The boomerang will grab items through walls, through pretty much everything that you can toss it through. So you saw Engel throw it there. You can peek that check just by having your back to it. So you could have taken a peek over there with a couple side hops, if you will. But Engel, of course, being the natural showman, decides to show you another great use for an item here, in this case, the boomerang. There are a couple of checks in the game that you can make use of that for. Normally, you are expected to light the torch outside of that coffin in order to access whatever's inside of it. But hey, we've got a boomerang. Why not do it the cool way? Oh, no. The pain, the tragedy. Ooh, actually, chat brought up something very good that we actually haven't addressed yet. So, Nukes, how are we going to get through Ganon's trials, those pesky things at the end of the game?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The answer is we don't have to worry about them. They're typically turned off, always in competitive Ocarina of Time. You can opt to turn them on if you want, but we usually keep them off just because all that kind of leads to is usually requiring all items to defeat those trials. And we don't want to completely complete the seed every single time. That kind of takes out the fun of these. So we opt to turn them off.
Which is good because Fire Trial does require all 3 strings. We would need the gold gauntlets to toss around some giant rocks, and you know, that in and of itself adds a lot of length to it, but we'll not have to worry about that, as noted. Engel's still got a couple more checks here in bottom of the well. He'll be able to peek a couple of them and work his way to the back, but Engel, I know we're still holding out hope that bottom of the well will pay out, but I don't know, man. It's not looking great.
Yeah, you know what they say, always skip the well, right?
Do they say that, or is that just you?
It's probably just me, but it's looking like nothing's in here other than that bow. which we already found one. So, as we know, they're progressive items, so it turned into a quiver upgrade.
Where to now?
Yeah, I think we still got some big areas we can explore. Spirit Temple, even Water Temple itself. Might just have a vanilla long shot in it, right? So, gonna go back adult
please
here.
Don't say that.
Vanilla long shot. Oh my goodness.
No thanks. I do see a question in chat. Can light arrows be in a trial? And they can actually be located in Ganon's castle on one of the trial checks. Most definitely. Again, we mentioned this earlier, but I know we've had a lot of people come in and out since then. Let's say you do fall on the bridge to Ganon's castle, but you still haven't found your light arrows. Thankfully, when you walk up to Ganondorf, he will give you a line of text that will tell you where he hid the light arrows in the particular seed that you are playing. So it kind of narrows down your search there if you are just missing those, which is very, very nice for wrapping these up. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to tell us where the long shot is today.
What a jerk. So Spirit Temple, I think, is another really interesting dungeon in the context of a randomizer because you don't need all of the keys. You need the boss key and 3 keys to get up on adult side. And I'm trying to avoid going into like deep spirit key logic here that's just so convoluted that nobody actually knows how it works. Nobody. I refuse to believe anybody actually knows it. But the nuance of this dungeon that makes it really exciting is that if you have the right tools as adult Link, you can jump down, do some of the child side checks. You can light some of the torches with Din's fire or with fire arrows. And again, let's say that this was a dungeon that Engel had to beat and he knew that he didn't need to get every check, like this could be his final dungeon that he needs to beat or something along those lines. You can actually get through a lot of this dungeon without having to do the checks simply because of how it's laid out. So is there anything you'd like to add to this angle about why Spirit Temple's unique in this context?
So there are some other interesting parts. We did find a hint earlier about this dungeon. I believe the right hand has a small key. And as you mentioned, logic for this dungeon. If that child side hand has a key, you would be required to have the long shot to complete this dungeon. So that's kind of why I didn't pick up the boss key there.
Maybe. Come on, long shot.
Hey!
Yay!
Hey!
Yes, we are. So now we are in what we call go mode. That means that we have all the required items to beat the dungeons required, as well as our light arrows, bow, and magic to fight Ganon. So all Engel has to do here is go finish up the water temple as fast as possible and go slay Ganon. I also really want to quickly address, I did see some talk in chat about, so we must really need to know Ocarina of Time, have a good understanding to do a randomizer. I just want to touch on that is definitely not the case. Again, highly recommend using a map tracker if this is your first time playing. That will help you see all the locations possible where you can find items, as well as what is available based on the items you have. Additionally, Ocarina of Time Randomizer is super customizable. So you can either turn off certain checks. Let's say you really don't want to check 50 Skulltulas, or you don't want to do that 1500 horseback archery game. You can turn those off. Make it easier when you start off, and you can work your way towards those.
And you see on the tracker, the Triforce is there and it is radiant, is shining, because we don't have to check anything else. We are looking for one giant chest that has the boss key and potentially some other small chests that have more keys to get us to the boss key. But this is always the exciting point. This is where if you're racing, you lean forward in your chair a little bit, the sweat starts to form because you know it's just a race to the finish at this point. And I mean, this has been a great seed so far. Still some seed left to be played here, and we'll see how much of Water Temple we get to see.
Yeah,
but this water.
I was gonna say this is gonna be really interesting. I know a lot of people do not have fond memories of the Water Temple. Vanilla wise, this temple is usually the worst for most folk. But in Randomizer, it's actually really what's the word I'm looking for? It's a lot quicker to go through, a lot more interesting, a lot more ways you can approach it.
Yeah, I mean, and we have enough items here to absolutely break this temple at this point. So you're going to see Engel pick something pretty similar, it looks like, to the normal path that you go through. He's actually doing a fun little trick here. He's swimming with his iron boots, you may have noticed. So if you Z-target and take out the iron boots, you will actually be able to swim with your iron boots. You'll keep sinking, but retain the mobility. So in this dungeon, normally you would be expected in vanilla to play with the water levels to kind of move things around a little bit. You don't have all the equipment. You might need to go through it a little bit quicker, but as Nuke said, Randomizer, we're coming here with a little bit more than Link would normally have at this point, and we'll see how much Engel gets to break it. It's possible that this is our boss key and we're going to be in and out. And it's certainly not the boss key. It is a small key, so we're going to grab it anyway, but Engel, go ahead and show just a couple ways to access the crack, or one of the ways to access the crack.
Yeah, so we actually already kind of looked at it while we were on our way up, but there's a few ways you can get to this. One way, you can use a bomb chew here, wait till it lights up the 4th time, drop it, and it will blow up the wall here. And you can kind of just come down here with your iron boots, kind of like we did in Forest, hook shot the chest, and just grab it like that. But there's other ways to, we could show that here when I lower the water. We can also make use of our hover boots.
And again, one of the reasons the Water Temple is so infamous is that exact check. In vanilla, you are expected to have adjusted the water a few times and have at least a decent command on how the water level affects the dungeon to come back up here. You would need it to be at the middle level, but we've got a couple ways around it, and Engel's going to demonstrate another one here.
Yeah, so
water level is low.
Again, we can just roll forward, do a little side hop, and we're in. Very simple little trick if you have hover boots when you come in here. And yeah, we love those little things that save us time when playing through the game. And again, it's not expected of you to be able to do that. You know, the game will let you just, you know, re-raise the water to the middle level and come in. But we see another small key here. Water Temple, gonna make us work for this boss key, it looks like.
So we talked a little bit earlier about using save quit to get back to the start of a dungeon. There's a few dungeons where this matters a little bit more. Of course, Fire Temple, if you're partway at the top, it's usually quicker to save and quit just to get back to the front. And Water Temple, it's especially useful. It's going to send Engel right back here to the start. He's going to make use of his hover boots to go over to the side here. He's going to be able to pop down to this little push block area, and he's going to go ahead and give it a little peek here and look right through that. And there it is.
Yay!
That's our boss key, everybody.
All right, as soon as we get that, we are almost done with the seed here. Gotta slay Morpha and slay Ganon. I just want to take the time again to remind everyone. I know we've had some folk come in later here. Maybe you didn't get to catch the whole show, but you're interested in more. This will be posted on the Games Done Quick YouTube channel tomorrow night, so make sure to check that out if you want to watch this whole session here. Additionally, we are going to have more Ocarina Improv shows coming up. It's going to be every other Friday night here, starting around 10 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to check out our future shows for more of this content.
Now, the last thing we need to do, we do need to raise the water back to the top. Engel's going to simply ride on over with the hover boots here to get that grab, and who needs to go through the back half of the dungeon in order to raise this, right? We've got the hover boots, and there's actually a nice little jump that you can line up to make the jump from the central pillar over there to this side, and that's just another way, again, to make this dungeon go even faster, but we do need the water to be at the top here in order to long shot over. And now we have what is oftentimes the quickest boss fight in the game. We'll hope for a clean run here from Engel, and it kind of speaks for itself, but we'll let Engel narrate as he plays it.
Yeah, so I was using a little audio cue there to know when to grab Morpha, and we're done. Basically, I waited till I heard the splash noise of Morpha to pull out my hook shot and then grab it, bring it on over to the corner of that door frame to a quick little jump slash and some stabs.
And if that one seemed a little intense, it's because it is. It's not easy to do, but anytime that you pull Morpha up and you get kind of popping around there, you can always drag Morpha over to the corner with the hook shot. You can just keep pulling Morpha over to the side.
Yeah, so
get little nucleus to the
alternatively, you could kind of put Morpha over in this corner as well, do a little jump slash, and keep it stuck in there. That one's a little bit easier. So just a couple quicker ways to deal with that boss.
And for a boss that gave me a lot of trouble as a kid, nothing more cathartic than just yanking that nucleus around the whole boss arena and putting it into a corner.
It definitely takes away the more complex part of that fight as well once you get more of the Morpha arms coming at you. All right, now last thing we've got to do is head to Ganon's castle and take care of Ganon. As we mentioned earlier, you're going to notice that there will be no trials required in Ganon's castle. That's something we keep off for competitive Ocarina of Time Randomizer. It is an option to turn on if you wish to play with them turned on, but most people suggest not to play with them just because, again, that kind of ends up you needing to get all the items in the game to complete.
Yeah, I know, Nukes, you love kind of doing those completely random settings, don't know what you're gonna get before you start it up, and then sometimes those trials are on and you need gold gauntlets, right?
Yeah, if you want to be someone like me who likes to play random settings randomizer, that's unfortunately something I have to deal with a lot, and yeah, you often have to get those strength 3 so I can get to Ganon.
But again, like, the key thing to really see here is that there's just no way, there's no wrong way to play this game. Like, if you want to do crazy random settings, go for it. If you're newer, you haven't played in 10 years, you want to, have a nice beginner settings, maybe turn off, the skulls that, you might not remember exactly where all of them are until you've played a few times. Start yourself off with the lens of truth if you want, or, you could change, maybe you want to do one where you need to beat every dungeon before you can go in here. There's just so many options and just no wrong way to play this.
We are at the final portion of the game. We have changed the Radiant Triforce to instead be the Radiant Eyeball Frog, and it is about the cutest little perler imaginable there on our wonderful tracker, but we've kind of talked about this a couple times, but I will again note for people who may have come in, we do need the bow and the magic to fire the light arrows, and we do need the light arrows to damage Ganondorf, so if it's been a moment since you've experienced this fight, always a good thing to note. We do have all of that, and as we'll kind of explore once we get to the second phase, the Ganon fight, there are a number of interesting mechanics that we'll get to take advantage of. To get through that fight more cleanly, we do have a request to do at least one bit of damage with a Deku Nut, so we'll see if Engel's willing to oblige, but this is typically a really cool fight to see done well and efficiently, and we do have the Big Goron sword as well, so Engel, I think I'll once again turn this over to you to kind of narrate your way through this final boss fight.
Yeah, so we're here. Ganondorf is actually going to tell us where the light arrows were. As you can see, he says, oh, from the market. So if I didn't have them coming in here, I could just ask Ganondorf, and he's just happy to tell me. I don't know why, but a nice little feature. But as for the fight itself, what we're gonna do is move away from Ganon while he hits the middle platform, then come right back to the edge of it. As long as we're on the edge here, he's not gonna hit us. So we can just play a quicker game of tennis right there. And then get some stabs on him.
Huh. That wasn't so bad.
So now I used the Big Goron sword there for the tennis, but actually a little thing most people maybe don't know is that the bottle gives you the longest amount of time to kind of play that tennis, has the biggest kind of reach. So if you struggle in that fight, actually pull out a bottle and use that to swing back at him.
Now here in phase 2, as some of you may remember, we are going to lose the Master Sword, but we've got ways of doing that, and Engel, I know you did the jump slash there, so what'd you do that for? What's your plan of attack against this guy?
Yeah, so again, we do the jump slash to store that value, and if you weren't here earlier, we said other weapons can actually now use that value in a crouch stab. We could use the hammer that I have equipped, or we could use the Big Goron sword. Although you guys did make a request, didn't you? So we're going to pull out these real quick, roll back, and toss a Deku Nut at him. And can actually do some damage like this.
If you have 10 Deku Nuts, that actually will take out phase 1 of Ganon here. So really, the game allows you to kind of utilize any item to fight this first phase. But the jump slash with the Master Sword and then storing that into a crouch stab is definitely the fastest.
Yeah, and once you have the first phase done, the second one, pretty straightforward. You have your Master Sword. You just roll under him, do some more stabs, and that'll end the fight pretty quickly here.
All right, everybody in chat, get your GGs ready. We are about to hit time.
Time is always on this last slash here on Ganon. Time. GG.
GGs.
That was definitely quite an interesting randomizer seed here, but I think Engel did a fantastic job of showing us through this seed. Also want to thank 9 Whole Grains here for also helping me with commentary and explaining what the heck is going on. I hope everyone in chat here learned a thing or two. Again, if you missed out on a bunch of this or want to go back and watch more, this will be uploaded on the YouTube tomorrow night at Games Done Quick YouTube channel, so make sure to check that out. I want to take a moment to ask Engel and 9 Whole Grains if there's anything you want to shout out. Now's a great opportunity to do so.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and say another round of thanks to everybody who joined in tonight. I know it's a Friday night, but it's still late, darn it. And we've had a great crowd and a great chat all the way throughout. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank everybody at GDQ and Hotfix production. A lot of people working behind the scenes to bring this to you all. So of course we certainly have to thank the production team and as well Nukes for hosting this and having me on, and Angle of course for giving the great run. And I'll kind of reiterate what Nuke said here. There's going to be more Ocarina Improv, so if this is something that piqued your interest, it's going to be more in the future here on this channel and also on the YouTube channel. So between now and the next time, if you all have tried a seed, please by all means come back to the next show and tell us how it went. We'd love to hear your progress, because this really is all about spreading the fun and the joy of a new way of looking at a classic game that we all know and love.
Yes, definitely. If you enjoyed this show tonight, we will be continuing this short special Hotfix series every other Friday night, again, starting around 10 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully we see y'all in a couple of weeks. That will give you time to maybe get started yourself. I'm going to one more time share that link in chat that gets you started on getting your own Ocarina of Time randomizer going. There's a nice link with some more information there. Also links to our runner Angle and also 9 Whole Grains and mine Twitch channel. All three of us I know would be very happy to talk to you about Ocarina of Time randomizer if you ever want to pop into our chats as well. But with that, we are done for the night. Again, thank y'all for watching. A few quicker announcements here. Awesome Games Done Quick 2022 online is over, but Hotfix is year-round. Go to gamesdonequick.com/hotfix for more info. If you're watching on YouTube, go to twitch.tv/gamesdonequick if you're interested in looking at our live content, starting most nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. And make sure to tune in tomorrow as well for Going Places at 1 p.m. Eastern, a show about handheld games and regional exclusives. Everyone, I hope you have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with us through this Ocarina of Time randomizer, and we'll see y'all next time. Goodbye!